Hey everybody, happy Wednesday and welcome to the Hang Up. I'm Matt Dillahunty. You are watching The Line. There'll be a call-in number down below pretty soon. I hope you guys are doing well. We have a free speech emergency. I remember when folks started complaining about free speech stuff and completely did not understand what free speech means with regard to legal protections. And so they came up with freeze, F-R-E-E-Z-E, peach, P-E-A-C-H, to talk about the very issue that they were saying, oh, you're violating my free speech rights, my free speech. That's not at all what free speech is. In the United States, the Constitution of the United States has a number of amendments, the first 10 being known as the Bill of Rights. And the First Amendment, the one that people felt was the most important that they stuck at the beginning, provides freedom of religion and speech and press, among other things. And what it specifically says is that Congress shall make no law abridging the right, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. There we go. Sorry, doing stuff from memory, you tend to throw words around. What we're talking about is that it means the government can't censor or interfere or restrain the public's ability to freely express their views and opinions. It does not mean that there are no consequences to speech. It does not mean there are no consequences to expressing your opinions. It doesn't mean you have a right to say whatever you like without consequences whenever and wherever you like. As a matter of fact, it doesn't address your rights to express yourself in private at all. You don't get to say whatever you want without consequences in my house. And as a matter of fact, you don't even get to say whatever you want out on the street without consequences, as long as those consequences aren't coming as a result of government action. There's a number of different doctrines that have been raised over the years, including fighting words, which is the notion that you could say something that by its very nature is so insightful and insulting that people would have, it would be perfectly reasonable for us to just accept that you're going to get punched in the face or otherwise accosted. And so while generally you do not have any sort of right to physical violence in response to mere threats or mere words, fighting words were an exception that was made by the court. It's one of the few First Amendment rulings that I completely disagree with. I don't think there should be a fighting word exception. I think it's a holdover from a time when we just viewed people as if they only had a lizard brain that they couldn't overcome. You can say whatever you want to me, and I don't think that I should ever have the right to punch you in the face or the throat or anything else merely because I'm incredibly offended. In the 40s, there was someone who called a police officer a goddamn racketeer and a damned fascist. And he was arrested, and his conviction was upheld by the Supreme Court under the fighting words doctrine. I think that has to stop. I think that law, that particular precedent is about to be challenged as much or more as any other precedent, because we are being governed by goddamned fascists. Actually, I don't think they're goddamn, because I don't think there's a God to damn anybody, but we are dealing with damned fascists. And if that gets somebody arrested, you might find yourself in trouble, because not all speech is protected. And I'm not a free speech absolutist. I'm not saying, oh, all speech. No. I'm saying we're mostly doing it right. There are some exceptions. I just disagree with the fighting words one, and always have. Speech covers expression, because it's not just a vocal thing. It covers what you write. You could do it. You can have freedom to express yourself through interpretive dance. That's not listed there. And yet we have a body of legal precedent where different aspects of your rights to engage in free speech have been challenged and addressed over and over again. And so we built up a legal precedent that becomes our body of law that we refer to. And it used to mean something. And it's doubtful that it means anything at all like what it used to mean. It's doubtful that it has the significance or the weight. It seems to be that we live in a world now where legal precedent is thrown out at a matter of convenience, and that there are loopholes and ways around and all sorts of ways to say, well, we're not really violating this precedent, we're doing something else. And it's a problem on, excuse me while I say this, both sides. Now, I know there aren't two sides, and I know that both sides, however you want to divide it up, aren't similarly or equally problematic. But the issue is, if you remember, when the left has objected to things where the MAGA right is like, oh, you're violating my free speech, what the right is objecting to is the left wanting accountability for public speech. The left's wanting to advocate for protest and the prevention of undesirable speech in private spaces, and counter protests, and the ability to hold people accountable. For example, there's absolutely nothing at all illegal, nor should there be, of saying, wow, you have that person as an employee and they just said all this racist crap. I can't, if you're fine with that, that's your prerogative as a business. You get to hire or fire as you see fit. And if these are the types of people, within some limitations, but if these are the type of people you want working for you, that's fine. But I see no reason why I would ever want to frequent your establishment again. That's the process of letting your dollars speak, of letting your free speech speak. This is the process by which we counter bad speech with better speech, counter misinformation with better information. That's the process that we should be advocating for. And while the left is full of a bunch of confused dipshits who probably don't understand free speech that much better than people on the MAGA right, generally they're siding with legal precedent. And the left is far closer to the measured freedoms rooted in the rule of law and legal precedent, something that the MAGA right are now completely throwing out. The right is locking people up, which I'll get to in a minute. The right is attempting to get TV shows, comedians canceled. This isn't just the same thing as saying, oh, you don't want this person as an employee. This is an actual government action. Anybody who wants to can lobby to get Jimmy Kimmel thrown off the air. The right can do that all day long. It's when the government comes in and takes those actions that we are violating the law. And people don't seem to get that distinction. The right is trying to get people deported for jokes about Charlie Kirk. This is the world we live in. The MAGA right have thrown out legal precedent and due process. If you look at things that are about free speech and free expression, for example, consider things like flag burning. There's a Supreme Court case, Texas v. Johnson, that basically says flag burning is protected speech. It counts as free expression. It counts as your right to express yourself. It also, by the way, potentially falls under the other extension of the First Amendment, which allows the people to petition the government for redress of grievances. Basically, it allows for protests, and that could be a form of protest. So it's kind of doubly protected, which is why it's so ridiculous that Trump is trying to eliminate that via an executive order. His executive order, if it ever gets applied, is unconstitutional. It may be unconstitutional just sitting there as an executive order, but that's a trend. The fighting words doctrine I talked about is a problem for us because it pretends that there are some things that are too offensive to be protected. It kind of aligns itself with things like pornography. And while even, let's be honest, the overwhelming majority of people have seen and or potentially enjoyed pornography of some sort. Nobody's saying that everything should be illegal, pornography or otherwise, or everything should be legal, pornography or otherwise. Actually, there's probably somebody out there that says that. Those are the extreme political anarchists. But we have this body of legal precedent. In Tennessee, on September 21st, Larry Bouchard, a retired law enforcement officer, was arrested. Larry, by his own admission, laughingly said, I might be an asshole, but I don't think I've done anything illegal. He was arrested for posting memes. Specifically, he was arrested for posting one meme. It was a picture of President Trump. And Trump was responding to the Perry High School mass shooting by saying, we have to get over it. And somebody meme-fied that. And Larry went in and posted that in a Charlie Kirk group after Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. So on the internet, somebody posted a meme, just a quote of President Trump in response to Charlie Kirk's shooting. It was absolutely protected free speech. And he was arrested September 21st. He was arrested because you can't arrest him for free speech. You can't arrest him for stating his opinion. You can't arrest him for addressing an idea yet. He was arrested for threatening mass violence at a school. So the speech, which was a quote of Trump about a school shooting, was spun as if he was using that to threaten a mass shooting at a school. Now, almost anybody hearing that's going to be, this story can't be real. It is real. I remember hearing about it on September 21st or a couple of days after that when it happened. I have friends in Tennessee and family in Tennessee, and I hear things on occasion. Threatening mass violence at a school was the charge. In any decent version of America, that person would have never been arrested. No law enforcement official, officer, district attorney, etc., could possibly look at that and say, oh yeah, we're going to go get this guy. In a world where people understood and valued legal precedent and the First Amendment. That just cannot happen. And in any reasonably sane world, if the dipshits and fascists who tried to arrest this individual were successful in arresting him, he should have been let go like that, just released immediately. Instead, he sat in jail for over a month. He was arrested September 21st. He was released today. According to court documents, District Attorney General Hans Schwendman opted not to prosecute the case. And he was ordered to be released. This wasn't the charges were just dropped. This wasn't we investigated. No, they just kept this guy in jail for an entire month for posting a quote from President Trump in a Charlie Kirk group after Charlie was killed. A month. This is a retired law enforcement officer. Not that it matters. It doesn't matter if it was an illegal immigrant. The language they like to throw around about people who are staying here, who may have expired visas or whatever else, because the right is actually actively trying to deport people for posting their thoughts, memes, jokes about Charlie Kirk. They are turning Charlie Kirk into their new martyr. Let's give him a day. Let's give him a holiday. Let's build a statue. Let's pat each other on the back about how we're all so impressed by this easy debate mode, dropout garbage racist. Charlie shouldn't be dead, but we don't do anything about gun problems. That man, Larry, should not have been arrested. And they had to know that they weren't quite far enough that they could just get away with taking somebody into custody and arresting them and keeping them for a month for free speech, no matter how they tried to hide it. They had to know it, which means this was, I'm going to keep you in jail for as long as I actually can, and then just pretend like it never happened. He needs to sue them. Larry needs to sue them and spend the rest of his retirement living on a boat, fishing, or doing whatever the fuck he wants. There are laws that we implement that limit our freedoms because we have to share space. And there are laws that we implement to protect some freedoms because even though we share space, we do not have to sacrifice our conscience. In Texas, unless a particular municipality has outlawed it, it is legal for women to go topless. I know you all want to move here now. I've talked about this before. In Austin, you can legally walk around topless, but I wouldn't do it. They can't arrest you for being topless, but they can arrest you for causing a disturbance, disturbing the peace, maybe inciting a riot if you have the world's best titties. When they couldn't eliminate abortion legally, what did they do? They set up trap laws all over the place to limit how and where you could get it and what the requirements were, and making it just so hard until they managed to hold up a judicial appointment, completely destroy and take over the Supreme Court, and then get rid of Roe v. Wade. They will ignore or find a way around the law and the precedent and due process, and they will fight and fight and fight until they either win and then expunge all the bad stuff they did, or they will find new ways to violate the law and keep us spinning in courts to say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this way. It's like when you're codifying laws, you can either list everything you're permitted to do, or you can list those things that you're not permitted to do. And it's much more efficient to just merely list the things you're not permitted to do and presume that you're free to do those other things. And when somebody really wants to do something that's prohibited, they're going to keep finding new ways. Well, can I do it like this? Can I do it like this? Can I wear a red shirt? Can I wear a green shirt? Can I wear a red and green shirt? Can I wear a red and green check shirt? What if it's red and green in stripes? What if it's red and green in dots? Oh, no. This is the process that goes through. It's not just the simple, it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. They don't give a fuck about forgiveness or permission. They are fascists ramming through their ideals. President Trump has destroyed the East Wing of the White House after promising. He stood there on television. I remember because Triple H was standing behind him because they were talking about presidential physical fitness or something, but that's when he was talking about the ballroom, saying, oh, no, it won't even touch the current building. The East Wing of the White House is gone, and nobody knows what happens. We have not been told, the public has not been told, about the house that we own. It's not fucking his house, it's our house. Nobody's been told about what the process is, what the process was, how they got approval, what happened to the relics and artifacts and other things that were in there. Have they been safeguarded? Were there building permits, or were there building permits that needed to be required? What is the new facade going to look like? Has it been approved by historical societies? No. It's just whatever the gilded turd wants, the gilded turd gets. Their constant attempts to work around the law used to stall progress. We would spend all this time fighting the same battles over and over again, saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't. Now we're not fighting those battles anymore. Instead, the government has come to a shutdown. And during that government shutdown, for some reason, Mike Johnson says he's working harder than ever. I don't know what he's doing. Government's shut down. He doesn't seem to know anything. Anytime anybody asks him a question, he doesn't know what's going on. Oh, I haven't looked into that. Haven't had time to look into that. I've been working too hard. Haven't had time to look. Motherfucker, I play a lot of video games and I've had time to look into absolutely all of it. They're lying. They're always lying. They're lying to your face. They lied about the East Wing. They lied about whether or not they're too goddamn busy. They're lied about whether or not they've heard of it. They lied about who's shutting the government down and why. The Republicans have the power and the authority to overturn everything and open the government up tomorrow if it wasn't fucking convenient for them to keep firing people and keep denying things. And on November, despite the fact that there's money set aside for it, there's an incredibly good chance that SNAP benefits are going to stop, even though there's money set aside for it. While we gild the White House and construct a ballroom for billionaires. Welcome to the fascist states of America. In the interest of all the people who've called into the shows that I've been on over the years, who do not understand free speech and think it's a violation of their free speech rights for me to mute them or put them on hold, think it's a violation of their free speech rights for us to not allow them into chat or anywhere else. For tonight, Eric and I are here, and unless you are hard banned by your phone number in our call-in system, you can call. I don't care if I've told you never call again. I don't care if you've been banned by other hosts. You can call. Lines are open right now. The information will be at the bottom of the screen here in just a moment. Excuse me. 720-619-2288. There's also a link down below this that you can click to call in via web interface. Is this the country you wanted? I mean, don't get me wrong. You can call in about theism and God stuff, and Eric and I are happy to talk about all of that. Anything that you happen to disagree on. But is this what you wanted? Is this the fascist states of America that you wanted? Allowing billionaires to hide the Epstein files? No, we haven't forgotten, and we're not going to forget. To deny basic rights and freedoms, to deport people for telling jokes. I thought comedy was alive and legal again. They accuse. Every accusation from them is an admission of what they're already doing. That's the reason they don't trust anybody, because they know what they do when they're in power, because they're fucking doing it. Man in Tennessee spent a month in jail. Not even for really a joke, just for quoting President Trump in an attempt to expose the bullshit hypocrisy of the people trying to lionize Charlie Kirk. A month in jail. This was supposed to be a very, very short opening. It was not. I had lots of thoughts in my head. And it's not going to stop. But welcome my guest tonight. Eric, how are you tonight? It's been a minute.
Hey, good evening, Matt. Yeah, doing well. Listening to your stuff there on free speech, and yeah, we've seen a lot of kind of incursions upon free speech, abuses of it. It's already old news because there's already so much stuff that's happened. But I was thinking about the Jimmy Kimmel controversy incident when it came to him and was it ABC? How we saw a very clear government pressure, indirect government pressure about this upcoming merger that this company wanted to do. And the government basically saying, well, if you don't do something about this guy, we're not going to approve it, which is censorship, basically. And we saw how Jimmy got canceled for a couple of days, but then it basically just backfired on them because people started canceling their Disney Plus memberships, and now he's back. But like the whole thing is just, comedians telling jokes getting canceled because we have a president and an administration which is so thin-skinned and so unable to handle any types of criticism that we see stuff like that. And thankfully, in the case of Jimmy Kimmel, we see how it tremendously backfired for Disney. Disney's still losing money from that whole thing because they lost so many subscriptions to their memberships, rightfully so. I think that's their just desserts there. But
They're going to raise their prices, though.
Oh yeah. They announced that like 2 days after the cancellation surge. Is like, that I chalk that up to probably one part of the company had already planned that, and now the part of the company that's handling the fallout is different from the company that's handling planning, and it's a left hand not knowing the right hand is doing, but it's still comical. It's great. But that at least had a positive outcome. Jimmy Kimmel got put back on the air. Disney's still paying the price for it. All's right there, but that's unfortunately only one kind of one like shining star in a sky of black right now, because we see a lot of folks that are getting canceled, or not canceled, that's the wrong term for it, but they're getting wrongfully fired by the government. Companies are put under pressure by the government because of things people said. We have prosecutors who have used certain terminology, like calling the January 6th rioters just that, rioters, getting put on suspension because they accurately described what those people were. We have people who've been fired from the FBI just because they, in the past, displayed a pride flag pin, either I think on their desk or on their person or at some point. But in the past, they did that. And now this administration with this FBI director decides to fire them for that expression. And then I think the third example, I had a third example pulled up here, but just folks who were parts of the federal government DEI programs in the previous administration. After the mandate, the executive order to drop all of that activity in the federal government, which was obeyed by these agencies, the people who worked for those parts of the agencies still got fired for doing their job. So we see a lot of concerning stuff here, and you described it perfectly. It's a group of people in this administration who are saying, we don't care what the law says, we will do what we want. It will get challenged in court, but while it's getting challenged in court, we can be doing all this damage. And we might actually win in court and get away with it. And if we don't, who cares? Damage is done. We'll just move on to the next thing. So it's like, go ahead.
If you deport a bunch of people, the damage is already done, and you're not going to go round them all up and find them back. When you tear down the east wing of the White House, it's not like you're going to, Arden was saying the other day that she hopes whoever takes over afterwards, assuming we come out of this, and don't end up with King Trump forever, or Emperor Trump, he would probably prefer Emperor, that whoever comes along next should rip down everything they built and build an exact copy of the East Wing again. And while I understand the sentiment behind that and think that could be a really good kind of, screw you, let's bring America back. No, I think it'd be much better to take that 90,000 square foot atrocity, if it ends up being that big, because he lies about everything, and turning it into, a soup kitchen and a medical facility right there on the grounds of the nation's capital, to show the world that we care more about people and their health and their stomachs than we do about gold and ballrooms and dances.
Yeah, I would be all for that. As you said, to tear it down and simply restore it back to where it was and like try to just pretend the whole thing didn't happen. We don't want to forget history. We want reminders of history to be around so we don't repeat mistakes, but also, set aside the tremendous cost and waste of resources doing that. Yeah, turn that symbol of decadence and of corruption and turn it into something good. And if that something good is antithetical to his whole administration, all the better. Soup kitchen would be awesome. A museum would be also great. A museum of culture and diversity in the country. That would be awesome. I would absolutely love to pay additional taxes in federal dollars, or dollars in federal taxes, to see that happen. Like just take away all of that tackiness, that whatever, because we've seen what Trump's tastes are in his architecture. Just strip all that crap out of there, and turn it into something practical and wholesome, and that's something we can all learn from. And I would be all for that. Take my money for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously we're already funding the Smithsonian and others as well, but there's so many other. It shows a marked difference in class, and I don't understand how so many of the poorest working class individuals can look at what's happening and go, "Yep, that's what I want. I want billionaires getting wealthier every second while they operate as the president, violating ethics with potentially tons of ethics violations. So this ballroom's not going to cost the taxpayers a thing. I'm going to pay for it along with money from my donors. But the thing is, the money's coming from a lawsuit with YouTube and a settlement over here with this and somebody else donating, which is also known as pay for play. If you want a good deal and the government is holding up your deal, why don't you give a couple $100 million to this ballroom? We can spin it like you are. Look at the gift that the NVIDIA ballroom. Look at what NVIDIA did for America. Now we can have 999 people in this ballroom just dancing and dancing while people starve, while people are deported, while people have their rights violated, while our farmers go bankrupt. We can invite all of Argentina up here to celebrate how we're bailing them out and buying their stuff and letting them sell the products that we used to sell. We can have a big Argentina blast off right there in the ballroom. But also somebody's like, for somebody like Trump, they're like, oh, you don't build this if you're planning on leaving. I get the sentiment, and I think you're probably right, given all the stuff we've seen, but also, Trump's not building this, and he's not going to lose a penny. He's made more money in the year that in this first year of his second term than he would have spent to build this entire ballroom. And it's not going to come out of his pocket. All it's going to do is keep enriching him, and it gets him the Donald Trump ballroom. It's right there. I can't do a Trump, but that's what he cares about. At this point, he doesn't, I mean, yes, he would probably be happy to be emperor right up until he kicks the bucket, but he's legacy shopping. He wants to be remembered as the biggest and the best, who did the most and gave the most, but without doing or giving anything. He's getting everybody else to give on his behalf, just like he supposedly did with some of his Trump charities. I'm going to write this big check so that I get the big cardboard check for, here's $250,000 for your charity, but it actually came from this backside deal and somebody else did this over here. And, by the way, I'll sell you some Bibles and other stuff. It is shocking that people don't see it.
You can't reasonably expect this much money to be flowing around without political favors occurring, numerous political favors occurring in the back room. Yeah, like it'd be just completely unreasonable to think that this money is not being somehow reciprocated for. Like, we don't know what's going on. We've already seen a lot of what Trump's corruption is capable of, and who knows what the stuff that we aren't seeing. So, yeah, it's pretty disheartening because this is definitely not, like, I've never been really a political person growing up. Being a Jehovah's Witness, like, we were mostly apolitical, or absolutely apolitical pretty much, because we were just expecting God to swoop in and just fix everything. But after leaving and realizing, hey, God isn't going to come and swoop in and fix everything. He's not going to sweep away all the badness and the corruption in the world. This is something that we have to do ourselves. This is something we got to constantly fight against. And it's very disheartening right now because it's very much a 2 steps forward, 1 step back process. And got to admit, lately it's been feeling more than a step back. But that's the important part, though. You got to keep fighting, keep persevering, and work for better days to come in the future, and teach the future generations not to repeat these mistakes.
Well, so here we are. It's about 6:35 right now. There's a little over 1,000 people here watching and waiting. We've talked about what the government's doing. Nobody from MAGA and nobody wanting to defend their religion is interested in interacting with us, even after lifting the ban. I have to think that they're either fine with what's going on, but afraid to admit it, or they are so depressed about what's going on that they're afraid to acknowledge that they might have been wrong. See, I think that what's happening is completely beyond anyone's ability to rationally defend. I think even the most diehard MAGA supporters, the ones who are closest to Big Papa Pump levels of fascism, and who's that dude that keeps calling, I think he got banned at some point. I think he called Jimmy earlier today. Tomras, I think. The guys like that who won't admit that they're a fascist but are kind of okay with it, none of them have any interest in defending what's actually going on. Hey, was it a good thing to tear down the East Wing after saying you wouldn't? Was it a good thing to keep the government shut down when you didn't have to? Was it a good thing to deny people food while you prepare for your fancy dress ball? Why? Hey, did you get a chance to see Trump as he walked around, wandered around, I guess, in Japan, while they tried to shepherd him around from one little station in this rectangular room to another? As it was I've never seen anyone so clearly, I have no idea where I am or why I'm here. And don't get me wrong, I'm not viewing that as the leader of the free world is suffering from some sort of mental aberration. He may be. But it tells you about his character. If you take a look at him when he's being escorted around, he looks confused, bored. Why am I here? When do I get to do the fun part of being president instead of just walking around? What he likes is when they give him gifts. And then he likes when he can drag them up on stage. Like he grabbed the Japanese prime minister and hugged her and held her multiple times while giving his speech in his MAGA hat and exercising the most awful, clumsy faux pas about the history of the United States and Japan that I've ever heard. It is I know why nobody's calling, and it's because nobody can defend this.
I was going to say a third option is probably that all the banned people, having been forced to sit back and listen, they finally heard what was being said and changed their minds, and now they're not calling back because, hey, they've now changed their minds because they had a moment to listen. A third option there, highly unlikely, but could be the case. But anybody in the audience, theists, conservatives, MAGA, whatever, call in and let's chat. I love talking about religion. I'm trying to do better about talking about politics here with Matt. So call in, give us a test, ask us questions. Numbers on the bottom of the screen where you want to talk to you.
Yep, you got free license if you're afraid or you don't want to dig in on politics or whatever else, but you have some religious notion that you'd like to defend or something that we've been wrong about or whatever else. In the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on here at the line. I haven't seen the newest full-on schedule, but for those who aren't aware, the line is a call-in network. Almost every single show on here focuses on call-in content. The number is 720-619-2288, and down below is a link to the call-in studio application so that you can call in from your phone over an IP address or from your computer if you want to. I would caution you that if you call in from your phone or your computer, there's going to be a delay, and you need to make sure that the background's not heard as well. So if you're watching the show, by all means, turn the show down or off while you're actually on with us. In addition to this program on Wednesdays, Thursday is a Transatlantic Call-In show. If you're someone who is confused about trans rights and trans issues, if you're confused about trans healthcare, trans people in sports, if you just don't even know what cis or trans means or why you should care or why it's of concern to you, how to be a better ally, how to maybe not be transphobic, that is your opportunity to call in. 2 p.m. Central, you can talk to I'm sorry, I got hiccups or something all of a sudden. You can call in at 2 o'clock Central and talk to a couple of trans people who will let you know both what their lived experience is, what their expertise is, what their lives have been like, the lives of the other people, what the risks are. They have tons of information about medical processes. And if you've been concerned, somebody called me a transphobe and I don't think that's fair, that's a great opportunity for you to call in and find out perhaps why they did it. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe you, like many other people, think that, transphobia, homophobia, all these are phobias, and that means fear, and I'm not fearful of them. But the phobic suffix there, or primary, is an aversion to. Hydrophobic doesn't mean it's afraid of water. It means it's averse to water. And if you're unknowingly making lives worse for and advocating for positions that make lives worse for trans folks, queer folks in general, then you might well be transphobic or homophobic. That's Thursdays on this network. On Fridays and Saturdays, there are also episodes of Cus I Wanna and Calling It Now at irregular, intervals. And then the primary shows happen on Sunday. The Sunday show at 2 o'clock has often me, although I'm not always here, and I won't be here the weekend of December 7th. That is primarily about religion. If you have a God belief of virtually any type that you're willing to defend, and not just, hey, I think my cell phone is God, and I don't feel like defending that. Awesome. Thank you for your book report, but we're going to move on to where we can have some sort of interactive kind of call. But it's everybody's opportunity to say, you know what? My view, and I can go back to when I was a fundamentalist Christian, a fundamentalist, Bible-believing, largely literalist, kind of almost Christian nationalist at different points. Definitely a full-on Rush Limbaugh ditto head, and had, traditional values and traditional views. Although I'm more confused about what that means, because I knew what my traditions were. I didn't know what everybody else's traditions were. I didn't know what Eric's traditions were. I don't think I actually met or interacted with a Jehovah's Witness in any significant way until I was in the Navy and had a JW who was in my division. And I don't even remember the specifics of all that.
Interesting. He must have been a kind of JW, or maybe he just identified. But even though, because JWs don't allow for military service, so it's interesting that you had somebody in there that claimed to be a JW but was in the military, because that happens. Like, there's lots of people who claim to be JWs, but when they go to the congregation, they're like, "No, we don't want you here because you're in the military or whatever." Interesting, yeah. I mean, interesting to talk to that person, get their rationale about why they were doing that.
My impression, this was a young person who I think was raised JW, but
that might be it.
Was perhaps ostracized from their family and didn't have other options for employment. Had maybe been, are they big on shunning the way Amish sometimes are?
Oh yeah. Although if that individual never took the plunge and became a baptized Jehovah's Witness member, back then the fallout or the consequences for that were pretty limited. So yeah, they probably were raised in the religion, never got baptized, and yes, probably got into the service because of looking for opportunity or looking for money or for training. And they still call themselves that, but if you were to ask one of the elders in the congregation, is this so and so a witness? They'd be like, no, he's not. He's in the military. So it's all matter of perspective and such.
Yeah, there were tons of things that I learned. Growing up primarily Southern Baptist, I knew my tradition. I didn't know other people's traditions. The Navy was very eye opening for me, because it forces you to work in a close space with people who you probably dislike viscerally in some cases, and definitely disagree with, and have incredibly different backgrounds. I remember, I grew up in kind of rural Missouri, And while we didn't have a lot of black folks at my school or in my community, I remember it wasn't a foreign exchange student. But it was definitely an exchange student. His name was Demetrius. He stayed with us. He was on a mission trip or something like that. It was one of the only black people that I got a chance to interact with when I was still living out in the country. Then when we moved, to St. Charles, there were quite a few more as we, hit the late 80s. But as soon as I go in the military, all of a sudden, it's a bit of a culture shock, having been raised around a whole bunch of people who were very, very, very much like me. To be around people who were so very different in a number of different ways. Well, we had somebody on the line, and they just dropped.
Yeah, this individual.
Problems again.
We might be actually. I was going to ask that. Yeah, this individual called in on the web, and then called in again on the phone, and then dropped again. So, yeah. Not sure if we're having technical issues tonight or what, but we got something there now.
Well, let's just let me give it half a second here.
Yeah, let this person get through the screening process. But yeah, the culture shock it's a very real thing, especially if you grow up in very insulated societies and cultures. I think like the Amish, they kind of bet on that when, they raise their children completely isolated or almost completely isolated from the world. They don't know how to operate in a big city. They don't know how to operate in kind of public society as a whole. And then kind of when they get to that age and they want to leave and experience the world, they're just kind of let loose into it with zero preparation.
Yeah.
And that shock in most cases will end up making that individual come back to the collective and rejoin the Amish society and never want to leave again because it was such a terrible experience because they weren't prepared for it. I've seen this happen with numerous Jehovah's Witnesses where, depending on the witness family you're dealing with, they might be really strictly following the rules or very loosely following the rules. And I've seen one or two families where they had very, very, very strict rules for their children, 100% just a witness isolation growing up. And then when these kids became teenagers and young adults, they get out there and they have to build their own lives and interact with people on their own. And sometimes bad things happen because they aren't calibrated to operate in a world the way the world needs you to operate. They don't know how to handle things like vices, like drinking or drugs or alcohol or sex or anything like that, because there's no training, there's nothing around, there's no education. It's just these things are bad, don't do it. Okay, get out there in the world full of it. And no wonder, I heard it's likened to it's a really crude analogy, but it's kind of like raising a kid, like kind of like holding a spring. If you, as that kid gets older, you need to let pressure off that spring gradually. Let that kid grow into an adult naturally and explore as they get older. Because if you don't, when that spring leaves your hand and it's still fully pinched, it's just going to fly off and do whatever. It's much better if you let loose that pressure gradually, let them acclimate to the world, and then they're better set up for success as they go out into it. And yeah, those insulating cultures are very bad for that kind of thing because you aren't preparing people for the real world. You're preparing people for your little fictional bubble that you got going there.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen it happen so many times, and it's very frustrating.
So here we go. Whoops. There we go. First caller is Andrew from New Jersey. Oh, Andrew, welcome back. Even though I probably told you not to call again, but welcome back because I'm told to tell you. By the way, Andrew, I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Cool. I'm told that we need you called in. You want to defend the government shutdown. Cool. We'll talk about that. I'm also told that we have to tell you that you raised $1,300 for the Secular Student Alliance during our charity event. People specifically donated in response to you having called the show.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. How can you help us out today?
Okay. With the whole government shutdown thing, this is from what I've read. I heard one of the reasons why they shut the government down was because the Democrats, they wanted to restore health care for illegal migrants, and the Republicans didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that's an incredible talking point that is completely not true. There is absolutely nothing. So the problem is that the Republicans are just lying. They're blaming it on the Democrats, both by what they want the Democrats supposedly want to do, but then they're lying about what the Democrats want to do. I went through on a recent show a list of every single category of individual in the United States and what programs they do and do not have access to. And illegal immigrants or the various categories, they're not getting health care. They don't have access to the SNAP benefits. They don't have access to any of that stuff. And if the Republicans wanted to, they could absolutely shut this down with the nuclear option whenever they wanted. So, for example, I pulled up my chart again. I could put it up on the screen. I'd have to, let me see if I can find it in a minute. But citizens get access to Social Security, SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, Marketplace Insurance, Marketplace Subsidies, SNAP, TAMP, Section 8 housing, federal student aid, public K through 12 education, and they're required to pay taxes. They can vote in federal elections. They're eligible to work for SSN and serve in the military. All of those are the same for people who are here with a green card, except they can't vote in federal elections. For people on refugee and asylum status, they do not have access to Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, the Marketplace, or SNAP. They cannot vote, and they cannot serve in the U.S. military. For people here under DACA, they might have access to Social Security under some rare exceptions, but they do not get, and this is true for all the rest of these as well, they do not get access to SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, Marketplace Insurance, Marketplace Subsidies, SNAP, TAMP, Section 8 housing, federal student aid, Head Start, and yet they are still required to pay taxes. So under DACA, under non-tourist visas, under asylum applicants, and under and unauthorized individuals, they are all required to pay taxes, and none of them have access to the benefits that the Republicans are claiming Democrats want to give them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, because I'm reading right here it says this is from the United States House Committee or whatever, and it has a bunch of stuff like it says like ending Medicare for Medicaid. I don't know if they get Medicaid, but it says ending Medicaid funding for non-citizens. This is section. I'm sorry.
There wasn't. So what you're reading isn't true. There wasn't Medicare or Medicaid funding for non-citizens includes people with green cards, but those are people who are here legally. Those are immigrants. They're not, and they're not even refugee status. Medicare and Medicaid, people in refugee status and asylum status don't get Medicare and Medicaid, and neither do people here under DACA, under non-tourist visas, under asylum applications, and people who are here illegally. You've been lied to, Andrew.
Well, yeah. Well, but like if an illegal migrant gets pregnant here and they don't have, Medicare, Medicaid, how do they pay for it?
How do they pay for what?
The health care. Like if they get pregnant and they need to give birth or whatever, who pays for that? Do they come out of pocket or?
They owe that money. But in the same way that there's a bunch of impoverished American citizens that don't pay their health bills, those things get rolled up into insurance for others. Are you suggesting that there's some reason to keep the government shut down so that people who refuse to pay their bills don't? I mean, what are you doing to them? You're not changing anything. If somebody gets in a motorcycle accident and goes to the emergency room, the hospitals have a duty to treat them. If someone shows up at the hospital steps delivering a baby, the hospitals have a duty. This is a medical ethics. This has nothing to do with the government or funding.
Oh, okay. So it is. So they don't get. So you're just saying is like migrants. They don't get like none of these programs. Like I know they. This talks about ending Obamacare and there's some loophole, some weird loopholes in California.
Obamacare is also called the Affordable Care Act, and what tends to present itself out is the healthcare marketplace, and that is only available to citizens and people with green cards. That's it. Oh, refugees and asylees can get marketplace insurance, but that's them having access to the system to then buy insurance. But it does not apply to DACA, non-tourist visas. No illegal immigrant has access to any of this shit. And yet they would still be required to pay taxes, and they would still be required to pay their bills. The only benefit that an undocumented worker or undocumented person living here gets on this entire list is access to K-12 education, which is a good thing, and the privilege of paying taxes to the United States of America.
But do they pay? Yeah, but do they pay like federal tax or what kind of tax do they pay? I'm not sure.
So, do you buy things out and around town, Andrew?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, you pay tax on all those things. Undocumented immigrants, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, don't quote me, but it's like 80 million or maybe even 80 billion. I don't know. Is the estimated tax that they do in addition to what they're contributing to the society. But what's the reason to keep the government shut down, Andrew? I mean, if somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing that isn't allowed by law, we don't need to keep the government shut down because the law isn't going to allow them to do it anyway.
Well, I'm not too well versed on so if it's not over healthcare, then why is the government shut down then? I mean,
because the Republicans, because for the same reason that Mike Johnson won't seat the new House member, because they're trying to keep the Epstein files hidden. And if the government is shut down, it gives them an excuse to blame Democrats and let go hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people that they want to cut from the government rolls. It allows them to fire people without recourse. It allows them to pretend that they're saving money. And it adds to the chaos that they like, because now they can tear down the East Wing of the White House. They can round people up. They can send their Proud Boy ICE agents out to round up your neighbors and get them out of here for talking shit about Charlie Kirk.
Okay. But okay. But you do agree that we need to cut some spending. I mean, like that $38 trillion deficit is crazy. I mean, I do think that we need to cut.
Who runs up the deficit? Republicans or Democrats?
Both of them.
No. Which administrations run up deficits and then they get fixed by the other ones?
Well, I think they both run deficits, and like even Trump doesn't cut. Trump is double. I know when he came in after Biden, after Obama, his first term, he doubled the deficit too. Neither side really cut spending.
Okay, which one's worse? Which one's worse every single time for the entirety of my life?
Which one's worse? To be honest, I have no idea.
See, it's wild, Andrew, that you're calling in. No, this is what's wild, Andrew. You're calling in and you know like 5%. And you're like, what about this? What about this? And then when I ask you, oh, well, I don't know. The reality is, if you go look up the financial statistics for the United States, for the entirety of my life, I've been around for 56 years. So just, you can go before then too. The Republicans blow up the deficit. Democrats tend to come in and fix it. In some cases, even really fixing it. And people forget how bad things were. And they focus, instead of focusing on finances, they start focusing on the social issues and how they don't like the United States as much because it's not white enough. It is not free enough. And yet it's still the left that is advocating for more freedoms and better freedoms. And it's the left that is advocating for health care, the left that is advocating for feeding people, having basic income. This is what the left is doing. What's the economy like right now under Trump? Is it good or bad?
Well, I mean, in my, you talking about how it affects me personally? Or are you talking about?
No, I'm saying across the board, when we compare statistics from when Biden was president to now that Trump's president, are we better now than we were when Biden was president?
Well, I think we're better now. I mean, inflation is like 2.7% under Biden. It went up to 7.2.
You think we're better now? So you can buy more groceries now than you could under Biden?
No, I can buy more. I mean, eggs went down. Eggs right now is $3. So they were sky high for a little bit.
Okay, you're being lied to again. Wow. Okay, Eric, jump in here. I'm gonna look something up real quick.
Yeah, so I'm kind of doing some Googling while you guys are discussing this. The last time, hey Andrew, can you mute? You have some type of air raid siren going on in your background there. The last time we had no worries, it's gone now. Last time we had a surplus on the budget was Clinton in '96. But if you do look at all the charts, though, while since Clinton we have not had a positive budget, federal budget for any administration. By far, the Republicans have the highest deficits. They tend to rack up deficits and rack up spending as they're in office, and then the Democrats come in and clean things up for the cycle to continue all over again. And you can find that on any website.
Clinton, yeah, well, Clinton, we didn't have a. What do you mean by? Because under Clinton, the national debt went up under Clinton. We didn't have a.
The national debt. The national debt goes up under every. The national debt goes up under every president, but no, Clinton had a 1% positive budget in his '96 term.
Yeah, the difference between the debt and the deficit is the debt increases, but how far behind we are in the debt is essentially what you're talking about with the deficit. Clinton balanced the budget. Okay. Clinton finished with a surplus. Meanwhile, the stock market, was it better under Biden, Obama, Trump 1, or Trump 2?
Well, I know the stock market rallied a couple of times under Trump. I think it's Trump 1, where the stock market went up under Trump.
I'm sorry. You see, you're not. I'm look here. Let me just save you some time. This is from The Economist. Okay. Assuming Arden makes this bigified, you can. I mean, I just pulled this up straight from The Economist right here. So, the stock market performed best under Biden, then second best under Obama, then third best on Trump's first administration, and then worst of the four on Trump's second. The same thing is true for exchange rates. Bond yields are dipping off.
Okay.
Cryptocurrencies have dropped down below that as well. Inflation was at its highest early in Biden because that's when what was happening. When we were recovering from COVID and Trump's failed economic policies, Biden reduced it. And it was continuing to follow that trend. And then Trump takes over and it started going up again. Now, there's the Consumer Sentiment Index. Our GDP did spike, but is still vastly lower than it was even under Trump 1 or Biden. There's stats on the labor market. If you just go look at the numbers, absolutely everything about this is worse under Trump's second administration.
You said what year did inflation start increasing under Biden?
You'd have to go back and look. I already closed that window. But you can go look up that date.
Yeah. That's
but in any case,
I know when it comes to debt.
In any case, Andrew, here's the thing. The fact is, the economy is doing worse. Our civil liberties are worse. Were we locking people up for free speech under any president prior to this?
Not that I know of.
And yet, were we deporting people over free speech over presidents prior to this?
I don't know if we were deporting people for free speech. I know they was deporting illegal migrants. I don't know any situation where somebody got deported for free speech.
No, I'm saying the right is seeking to deport people who are not citizens for speaking out against Charlie Kirk.
I mean, if they're not citizens, I mean, I think they would be deported under just being illegal. I don't know if they're deporting these people for speaking out.
I'm sorry, Andrew, but this is incredibly dishonest. I told you what was happening and why, and you're trying to say if they're doing it because they're illegal. Nobody said anything about them being illegal, or in this case, undocumented, but you. What they're doing is they're going after people who were here on green cards and other things who are not citizens. The current administration doesn't think the Constitution applies to people unless they're citizens, and that is simply false. The Constitution applies to everyone residing in the United States, citizen or not. They have the same rights to free speech that citizens do. The difference is they're not eligible to vote. They still pay taxes, and some of them will have benefits to some programs in the country, but you cannot just throw them out for saying shit that the president doesn't like.
For example, Andrew, back in March of 2025, Mahmoud Kali is an Algerian national and Columbia University student here as a permanent resident, so here illegally, but I believe was arrested by ICE because he made pro-Palestinian comments and attended pro-Palestinian protests, and he basically got swept up into the system, and they're trying.
You said he was legal or illegal? I didn't hear what you said.
He's a legal permanent resident student, university student, and was swept up by ICE because of having participated in pro-Palestinian protests and speaking out against the atrocities being committed against Palestine. And ICE swept him up and attempted to deport him.
By the way,
so it is happening.
Did they deport him?
By the way,
let me look.
How do you know who ICE is deporting and why?
How do I know?
How do any of us know who ICE is deporting or why?
We don't. I don't know. I specifically, personally,
not only just you, Andrew. Not only just you, Andrew. None of us know, because they're not using legal procedures. They're not allowing for due process. Just like when they blow up those boats down in Venezuela, we don't know who they're killing or why. Are you just trusting them that it's okay for them to kill people and okay for them to haul people up and lock them up and throw them out? What is without a rule of law to determine whether or not someone should be deported or whether or not someone should be killed, what standard are we supposed to use?
Well, I don't have the intelligence that they have that they use to indicate that these people are
Andrew, please stop coming up with excuses. I didn't ask you whether you had the intelligence. I don't have the intelligence. Does anyone that you can point to have documentation to show the legal status of people who are being deported or killed, or the criminal accusations or convictions of people who are being deported and killed? Is this public anywhere?
I don't know.
You don't know. It's not. It is not. Do you care that our government is killing? Do you care that our government is killing people and just telling you to trust them? Do you care that our government is capturing people on the street and throwing them out without any legal due process?
I do care. If they're killing innocent people, that's a problem.
How do you know if they're innocent, Andrew?
I don't know that they're innocent. That's why I'm not going to immediately jump to they're just.
I didn't ask you, Andrew, stop. Andrew, listen. Please listen to the question you're asked. I didn't ask you if you knew. I asked you, how do you know? So, for example, just recently, you're aware that Trump again blew up like 2 or 3 boats down by Venezuela, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
How can you find out who those people were and whether or not they should have been blown up?
I would have to research it. You know,
Where would you go to
there's no
research
way
it?
for me to find out.
How would you research it?
I don't know. Probably go on the look for the probably like some kind of military government website. You know, to see who these people were that they blew up or something like that.
Okay, so can you go on a military government website to see who these people were?
Well, probably not now, because I don't think they came out and told the public who these people were.
Right, right. What's supposed to happen before we take action against people, whether they're citizens or not? What is supposed to happen before we kill someone?
What do you mean?
Well, if the United States decides it wants to kill someone, what legal processes must be done before it can legally kill someone?
I guess gathering the evidence. I'm not too. I don't know all the ins and outs of the.
You don't know
process.
the ins and outs of this, Andrew. It's called due process. There's a legal process. So there's a bunch of legal processes. Due process isn't one thing. Due process is the description for saying, hey, you have verified and shown to the appropriate legal authority that you are taking this action against this person for this reason, and it is warranted. Let me ask you this. Those boats that they're blowing up off of Venezuela. Venezuela is about 2,500 miles from the United States, right?
Yeah.
How much fuel did those boats have?
I mean, those boats were super fast, so I don't know how much fuel they had, but they were fast. They were like,
it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing, Andrew, the facts that you think you fucking know. So it doesn't matter how fast.
What do you think? Do you think they're?
Would you just listen? You're ready to learn. It doesn't matter how fast a boat is if it only has enough fuel to go 100 miles, right? It can't get to the United States, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So if a boat is 2,500 miles away, and this isn't going to be a math question, but if a boat is 2,500 miles away and it has enough fuel to make it, let's say, 500 miles, and there's no evidence that it has any drugs on that boat, who's it a threat to and why?
Well, when they blew it up, you could see the drugs and stuff spill all over the ocean.
Oh my God, Andrew, no, you fucking couldn't. And that doesn't answer my question.
Yes, you could.
No, you couldn't, you liar. Who is that boat a threat to and why?
Yes, you can.
No, you can't, you dumbass. The boat blew up.
Yes,
how do you know what you saw was drugs?
What?
The boat blew up. How do you know you saw drugs?
Because you can literally see the drugs. You can literally see the cocaine or whatever the freak they had spill all over the ocean.
So you can tell the difference from footage of a boat blowing up with cocaine versus other particulate debris.
So you mean something you didn't see it?
Andrew, how do you know what you saw was drugs?
Because it looked like drugs with my own eyeballs. It looked like drugs.
I'm sorry. If I have a bag of flour and a bag of cocaine, how can you tell them apart when I throw them up in the air?
Really? You think it was flour?
No, Andrew, I don't think it was flour. I'm not even sure that it was anything at all like that, because when shit blows up, it creates dust. You're seeing footage from way up in the sky, and you think that you can tell it's cocaine. And I want to know what miracle faculty you have that lets you identify cocaine in grainy footage from miles above the earth.
I mean, I can't explain to you how I saw what I saw. It's just what I saw. I don't, like, you don't have my eyes. It's hard for me to explain it.
Yes, I definitely don't have your eyes, and neither does anybody on the planet. But I think that the U.S. government could use a man like you, because right now, nobody has any confidence that what they were actually going after was drugs, or that there were drugs on there. And every time, like if you go listen to, like, for example, even Rand Paul and others will say that when the Coast Guard pulls these boats over under suspicion of them having drugs, they almost never have drugs on them. But let's get back to my original question that you avoided. let's assume for a second that that boat in Venezuela, 2,500 miles away, has enough fuel to go 500 miles and is loaded to the hilt with cocaine. What is it? How is it a threat to the United States?
I mean, just the fact that they're attempting to bring it here, right?
Andrew, if a boat has enough fuel to go 500 miles and is 2,500 miles away, how long will it take for it to get here?
I don't know if it has enough fuel. I have no idea.
I'm sorry, I lied. This actually is a fucking math question because you are being too ridiculous. If a boat is 2,500 miles away and you give it enough fuel to go 500 miles, when will it arrive?
It'd take forever.
Yeah, it would. Meanwhile, if it's a tiny little boat, why not pull it over with the Coast Guard like we normally do?
Yeah,
and search it.
Yeah, if it's a tiny little, that's that. If there's a tiny little boat and it's not going fast, then yeah, you can pull it over. I'm pretty sure.
Never mind. Never mind, Andrew. Never mind, Andrew. You have no fucking clue what's going on because that's what we're describing. Well, these are fishermen, you idiot. Even plenty of other people have said so as well. You think you can spot? I'm sorry. You think you can spot cocaine. You think a boat without enough fuel to get here can get here. And you think that you can throw aside due process. And instead of pulling the boat over and searching it, which is what the law requires, you think it's okay to trust the government who will not give you information that they're killing the right people. You are stupid as fuck, Andrew. It's dangerous. Okay. You need to do better because I think you could be better if you actually gave a shit and learned and read and studied and thought. But you don't. You just assume, oh, I saw something, must have been cocaine. Oops, the government did it, and I like this government, so I'm going to trust that they did it right. While you admit and you acknowledge you don't know enough and you have no idea how anyone could have sufficient information to conclude that this was a justified legal action.
Andrew, for a moment, Andrew, hold on. I'm going to interject here. For a moment, Andrew, let's just assume, hypothetically, okay, that every U.S. strike on these boats has indeed blown up a cocaine boat. All right. Yep. Let's say we do this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and every single boat we blow up has cocaine on it. Are you okay with that?
Of course, I don't want cocaine coming here.
Under the current system where we don't check it, we don't vet it, we don't publish any of this information, the government just says we're going to blow up this boat and they do it. Are you okay with that?
You said if they don't check it?
We don't know what checks are going on behind the scenes. There could be no checks going on and they simply look at a boat and they go, yeah, that looks suspicious enough, let's blow it up. We don't know. That's the whole point. None of this is being published. There's no Andrew, there's no due process involved. Are you okay with governments blowing up? I'm still questioning you, Andrew. Are you okay with the government blowing up boats without due process?
Well, it depends.
It depends what? There's no due process. They just pick a boat and they say, that looks right, and they blow it up. Is that okay with you?
No, it's not okay to blow up a boat without due process. However,
okay, all right. Where is it? Where? No, Andrew, where is the due process right now?
Clarify.
Go ahead and clarify.
How are you going to? There's some situations where you can't do due process. Like when we went after Osama bin Laden, he didn't have due process. We just went.
Yes, we fucking did. Like, yes, we absolutely fucking did.
Wait, he went to court. He went to court and had a trial.
No, Andrew, you have no clue what you're talking about. You just agreed that it's wrong to do it without due process. And then you came up with an example where we literally did and followed due process. This was an operation that took place that was public and the information was given there and the appropriate legal authorities approved that operation. Trump is killing people. And what we're saying is that at no point has it been demonstrated to any legal authority and made public that what they're doing is legal and justified. That's what due process is. If the government of the United States, I was in the military for 8.5 fucking years. If our government wants to kill someone, they have to jump through some hoops. And those hoops are necessary so that we don't kill innocent people. Now, if you take a look at what's happening down there in Venezuela, one person, at least, has survived that attack. And the person's family and that person's government is saying, these are fishermen. They could be lying. How do we tell if they're just fishermen or if they're drug dealers? And if they are drug dealers, don't they deserve to be arrested and tried? Don't they deserve to be have their drugs confiscated? Why do we just get to blow shit up without any demonstration that we're blowing the right shit up?
What I'm saying is, they don't.
I'm sorry, I asked a question. I asked a question. Answer that question.
No, they don't have a right to just blow up random boats. No.
And yet that's what they're doing. So you're admitting that the government is doing wrong.
No, that's what you say. That you're claiming that these are random fisher boats. You haven't proven that.
No, I'm not, Andrew. Your brain is fucking broken. Listen to me very carefully. I'm saying we don't know if they were fishermen or if they were drug dealers. And even if they were drug smugglers or drug dealers or whatever else, that alone needs to be demonstrated, and it doesn't justify blowing them the fuck up.
And that was the point of my thing there, Andrew. That was the point of my thing there, is that we don't, as far as we know, we don't have due process in place for the actions being taken over there and blowing up these boats. It doesn't matter if they currently have. We could assume they currently have 100% success rate on blowing up cocaine boats. The problem is the next boat could not be that. The next boat could be an innocent boat with fishermen on it or families. It could be somebody on that boat that you love. But if we don't have due process in place, we're increasing the risk of this type of tragedy hitting innocent people. And that's not worth it. Hopefully you could see that if you could put yourself in the shoes of anybody on that boat.
No, well, I understand. I'm saying the boat that was blown up specifically, there was no fishermen. It had no fishing rods. It was just two black boxes, what looked like wrapped in plastic. And it was a very fast speedboat. Like it wasn't.
It's
like
amazing.
It was like
it's amazing which pieces you know and which pieces you don't have a fucking clue about.
I'm sorry?
I said it's amazing which pieces you seem to know for sure and which pieces you don't have a clue about. Oh, it was just black boxes. They weren't fishermen. No. Nobody said that they were out there necessarily fishing. I'm saying there's been a claim. And the issue is, how do we tell which of the claims is true? The one that says, hey, they were bringing drugs to America when there's no evidence of any fentanyl, no evidence that they could have made it to America, no due process at all on any of that, or that they were a fisherman. What if there's something else entirely is true? The point is about due process. You have to do your due diligence to show that you're actually targeting the right people. This is the same thing. If somebody shows up and knocks on my door, and they're at my house to arrest my neighbor, they have to demonstrate that they're arresting the right person. They don't get to just take me and think they've got the right person. They have to go step by step. That's what due process is. Making sure you're arresting the right person, making sure you're deporting the right person, making sure you are killing the right person. None of that is happening.
Okay. Let's say, Matt, they do go through the process. They do the due process thing that you're talking about. Like, let's say the government does all that. Then would you be for blowing up the drug boat?
No, but I would be for arresting them. Would you fucking listen to me when you ask a question? I'm telling you. No, merely going through due process alone does not mean that you need to blow up that boat. For a number of reasons, you have to show that that boat is a threat and that the responsible proportional threat is to blow it up. If that thing was coming here with a nuclear weapon and the absolute best way to stop it would be to blow it up, then fucking blow it up. Blow it up right now. I'll blow it up my goddamn self. But if it's a handful of guys trying to smuggle some fentanyl in, and there's 23 other fucking situations that you can do that don't result in just blowing them up, but instead result in the confiscation of their equipment, the confiscation of their drugs, the ability for them to stand trial, the ability for anything along those lines. anything like that would be preferable to just blowing it up, because we don't get to take the lazy route, because we can still make mistakes even with due process, and human life still fucking matters. You don't just get to run around killing people because you don't like that they might have brought drugs into your fucking neighborhood. What's the penalty? What's the penalty for selling fentanyl? Is it death?
For selling fentanyl? I mean, fentanyl kills thousands of people every year. I mean,
I didn't ask you, Andrew. I don't need a book report from somebody that's never read a fucking book. What is the penalty for smuggling drugs? Is it death?
Sure, it should be death. If you're smuggling drugs into the
country,
I didn't
ask you what your dumbass thinks it should be. I said, what currently is the legal penalty for smuggling fucking drugs? Is it death? Yes or no?
I don't know. I don't think
you don't know. You are the most clueless individual ever. There are people begging me to hang up on you, and we're still sitting here just educating you. No, currently there is no death penalty for smuggling drugs. But even if there was a death penalty for smuggling drugs, you should still have to go through a court trial before you're sentenced to death, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So why is it okay to just kill people when there's been no trial, no due process, no demonstration that there was drugs, and the crime that they supposedly did isn't one that carries the death penalty? Please tell me why it's okay to kill those people.
Because if you have well, how do you stop all these boats? Like if they're all
no, Andrew, I'm sorry,
from these
Andrew.
Countries, how do you stop them all? You can't use due process.
Andrew, shut up. Shut your fucking mouth and listen. I just walked you right up to the edge. It's right there. All you got to do is grab it. If there's been no trial for no crime with no due process, where even if all of that had happened, the penalty still wasn't death, I asked you what's the justification for blowing them up, and your brain went, hey, I don't have an answer to this. There's not an answer to this. I've been tricked. Let me ask a different question, which is, okay, then how do you solve the problem? That's not the fucking subject. If you want to talk about how to solve the drug problem, there are a number of different potential solutions. But in any case, none of those solutions is to kill people without due process for crimes that don't carry the death penalty.
And Andrew, your inability to come up with a better solution doesn't justify just indiscriminately blowing up these boats. Because you don't have a better solution doesn't mean killing them is okay.
That's like saying,
okay, then what is your solution?
That's like saying, I heard Eric had a splinter and I don't have a pair of tweezers, so let me just cut his fucking finger off even if he doesn't have a splinter.
Okay, then what is your solution?
I'm sorry. I didn't say that I had a solution. I'm pointing out that this is not a solution. Even if nobody has a solution, you called in to defend the government shutdown, and now you're trying to defend the murder of people, and your excuse is you can't come up with a better plan. Well, that's not surprising. You're completely uninformed. And the people who are informed don't have a better plan. But what we do have a plan is to make sure that people have rights and those rights are protected, that we don't just get to run around slaughtering anybody or letting our government kill people for reasons we don't know. How do you know that these murders aren't part of the $40 billion deal that we just gifted to Venezuela after giving them our soybean sales and telling them we're going to buy their steaks while our farmers go broke? How is that America first?
Yeah, I don't, it's most likely not.
Yeah. And yet you're in favor of this. You are in favor of the MAGA Trump position that is bankrupting our farmers while it bails out Venezuela yet again, that made sure that it tariffed the shit out of China so that China purchased zero of our soybean and bought it from, Argentina. How is that a good thing for the American economy there, Andrew?
It wouldn't be. I don't know too much about the farming situations. I don't know too much. That's why.
Why don't you go? Hey, I tell you what, Andrew. Instead of calling us to tell us how much you don't know, why don't you spend time learning?
I think it's the first time in
That's what
7
I'm
years
calling.
China has bought $0 in soybeans from us. The first time in 7 years, it went from multi-billion dollars
Why
of
did
sales to zero within a few months.
So you say, Andrew, that you're calling to learn. I don't know why you don't go off and go learn from somebody else, because it's not my job to sit here and do all your fucking homework for you. But let's see if you learned. What does due process mean?
that you're innocent until proven guilty?
Well, that's not what the due process is, but that's certainly a function of it. What needs to happen before you get to take action? That's what due process is. It's not just presumed innocent.
You need evidence. Yeah.
Okay. And it needs to follow the law. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much money did we give Argentina in addition to all of our soybean sales and buying their beef?
That I don't know. I'm not educated on the.
I literally just told you
farming.
2 minutes, or not even 2 minutes ago, is $40 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How many of our soybean farmers sold the soybeans to China this year?
Zero.
Zero. And how does that compare to every year prior?
It's not good.
Yeah. How likely is it? Now, do you realize, I think it's just today, interest rates on home loans was lowered, right?
Mm-hmm.
You heard about that?
I never heard about that, no.
Okay. Would you think that's a good thing that interest rates on home loans have gone down?
That's to borrow money, right? To get a home.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
I tried.
Yeah, I wanted to put a little bookend on the Mahmoud Khalil thing. So the Palestinian protester, the legal U.S. resident, permanent resident, became a permanent resident in 2024, was arrested in 2025 for participating in Palestinian protests. He is currently in the system. So he was swept up by ICE, even though he's a U.S. Permanent resident. They tried to deport him, and now it's back and forth in the courts, and he's currently out on bail. That's due process at play, because if there was no due process at play, he would currently be out of the country, who knows where, while being a legal permanent resident and a university student here. So we see the system in this case both kind of not working and working. ICE shouldn't have swept in and took him like that, but then the system got into it, and now he's protected. He's able to get a lawyer. He's able to argue his case. They're able to gather evidence and all that kind of stuff. This is not the accommodation or the consideration being extended towards the people operating those boats. There might be cocaine on those boats. There might have been cocaine on every single one of those boats. That doesn't justify just blowing it up. There's other means to take care of that problem. But also, as I said before, we don't know for sure. And if we get into this habit of just simply doing extreme measures for things we suspect, but without good evidence or without a good process, that opens up the door to all kinds of travesty, to all kinds of problems, to us losing loved ones. It's something we do not want to get into, because it doesn't work out for anybody. It's good for a politician who wants to say, "Oh, look, I'm doing these really great things to take care of the drug trade," but no, ultimately, it's not good for any of us. The government just willy-nilly doing what it wants and then seeking justification later, maybe. And Andrew, hopefully you can maybe sit and reflect on that and think to yourself, okay, what if I was the one affected by one of these government actions? What if the government swept in and ICE picked me up? Do I want to have due process in place to keep me from getting deported to God knows where while I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm assuming? Like, that might be the key for you, Andrew. You might want to take yourself and put yourself in their shoes, show some empathy, show some just human compassion for what's going on there, and ask yourself, if I don't want this happening to me, why do I want this happening to somebody else? You might get somewhere if you do that. Maybe. I'm hoping. But yeah.
So
I don't know.
Andrew's always a tough call, and probably not the best call for my heart, because it's incredibly frustrating to have somebody call in to say, I'd like to defend the government shutdown, who doesn't know what's going on at all. How do you call in to defend something when you don't understand the basics? Now, to be fair to Andrew had been lied to, just as the rest of America had been lied to. So it's not a particularly weak point on Andrew's part. Most of the folks on the right, including the Fox News pundits and the OAN pundits and all them, are actively spreading this lie that the Democrats have shut down the government because they want to give health care to illegal aliens. And the reason it gets traction is because that's a really cool little bumper sticker. Oh, you shut down the government because you want to give illegal aliens health care. No. Undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, here undocumented immigrants and legal immigrants outside of green card holders and some asylum seekers don't have access to these programs, never have. And no one has been asking, well, somebody probably has been asking, but the Democrats are not holding that up hostage. Instead, the Republicans desperately want to keep the government shut because of the Epstein files and because it's much easier for them to do stuff. You know, they don't have to get forgiveness or permission if they destroy everything. They get to blame and come up with more distractions to keep the uninformed, clueless, dumb fuck backwards basket of deplorable right-wing MAGA folks cheering on the lies. The economy is worse off. Trump literally said just the other day, he's got the best poll numbers ever. He has the worst poll numbers ever. Everything he says is a lie. Anything that matters anyway. He's got the
Even
worst
stuff that
poll
doesn't
numbers.
matter.
Yeah, well, true. I'm sure there's something that he probably doesn't lie about. They have the worst poll numbers. The economy is tanking. It's not the Democrats that are holding the government hostage. The Republicans could use the nuclear option at any time they wanted to. They don't want to, because one of the things that's going to happen is that's going to bring up the Epstein files again. And so there are people who are going to be not getting paychecks. There are people who are not going to be able to pay their bills. There are people who are not going to be able to feed their kids. And they'd like you to blame the Democrats when the Republicans control the House and the Senate and the presidency, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, and the fucking Supreme Court. Oh, but, you know, they need a 60 votes to overturn. Yes, that's what they need, unless they use the nuclear option. Meanwhile, there is funding for SNAP and things like that. They're withholding money from Americans while they funnel money to billionaires and to bureaucrats in places like Argentina. They are killing people, and you don't know who, and you don't know why. And you will probably never know who they're killing or why. You just know it's happening, and you're supposed to trust them. They are arresting people for free speech. They are deporting people. Somebody in chat said, can somebody point me to the law that says that non-citizens have these rights to do? Yes, it's called the U.S. Constitution, which does not describe those rights as rights of merely belonging to citizens, but which applies to people residing in, and which the courts have continually upheld, not just as a matter of here's what it says, but here's what it has to say. How do you show whether or not someone is a citizen deserving of rights without due process? You would have to grant them due process. You have to grant due process to everyone in order to even find out who you want to deny due process to. This is the dumbest shit ever. You fuckers are sitting around. Well, I just don't like them illegal people. You fucking racists. You're obviously. Have you guys seen? I'm getting ready to do a video about it, so I'm not going to go into it. Go to the Department of Labor's Facebook page and take a look at the AI generated fountainhead style white labor workers make America go to church again book cover propaganda that they're putting up. It's vile. And you guys are sitting out here going, why should these illegals get the rights? How do you know whether they're illegal or not? That's the whole point. If you want to say, let's deport everyone who is not here legally, every undocumented immigrant, if you want to say deport them, I would be A-okay with that, with a handful of corner case exceptions, if you just go through the due process. There's nothing. I want you to convict everybody that you feel like convicting for crimes. Actually, we should probably apply the law equally and not just to who we feel like it. But I would like to convict people and try people and prosecute people for crimes, provided you go through due process. People are like, oh, you know, there's Bill Clinton and them are in the Epstein files. What are you going to do when those are released? I'm going to laugh. I don't have a Bill Clinton action figure. My self-worth isn't based on whether or not Bill Clinton went to Epstein Isle. You know who else is in the Epstein files? People I've worked with. People like Dawkins and Krause. They were friends with Epstein, flew on his plane. I don't know who went to the island. I don't know who did anything illegal, but their names are probably going to be in those files. Lawrence Krauss repeatedly defended Epstein, even after some of the convictions, to us and those around him, because in what he said is he didn't see anything that approached that. And I have no way of knowing whether or not that's true. I don't find him particularly trustworthy, but I can't say whether or not it's true. He may have never done anything wrong, and he may have never seen anything done wrong, and yet he kept defending someone. He crosses a little bit like Andrew in that he's willing to defend something that he doesn't know enough about, and then acknowledges he doesn't know enough about it. I'm not going to be bothered by anybody's name in the Epstein files, ever. I don't care if they're formerly great friends of mine. I don't care if my mom's in the Epstein files. I'm not trying to protect them. Take a look at the people who are protecting them. And take a look at what they're doing for those people, those billionaires who are going to control every bit of media, who are going to shut all this down to where we can't do anything, to where we don't get to interact, where we don't have free speech, to where you won't just be arrested for 30 days and held in jail for a meme, but you will end up being deported, killed, or put in prison. And it's because people like Andrew can't be bothered to Google. People like the commenter in chat wanting to know what law says that it's a constitution, and a 2-second Google search. Even AI gets the answer. I don't go near Twitter, but I'd be willing to bet even Elon Musk's fascistly modified Grok AI knows that you still have due process and foundational constitutional protections if you are not an American citizen while you're in America. I'd be willing to bet that. Somebody in chat who still goes on Twitter, ask Grok if non-US citizens have constitutional protections like due process. I bet it says yes. We got other calls. Let's stop making these other people wait after having waited forever for Andrew. Mm-hmm. Our apologies. John from New Mexico is a theist, says found a meta-analysis that proves psychic divination is real. Hey, John, what's going on?
Hey, yeah. First I want to say, thank you to Andrew. I hear him calling in all the time, and I think he's a good sport. But anyways, yeah, so a few months ago, I was really taken off guard by this because I'm really not a magical thinker, and I don't think this is magic. I think it's part of quantum mechanics, and I think I understand it a little bit, and I could probably understand it a little bit. Anyways, shout out to Michael Levin's academic content channel. I learned this from a lecture with Chris Fields, who referred me to this meta-analysis. And Chris Fields, worked a lot with Daniel Dennett, RIP. Love that man. And basically, so it's a meta-analysis put together by a woman named, pull it up here. It's by Julia Mossbridge. It's called Predictive Physiological Anticipation preceding seemingly unpredictable stimuli, a meta-analysis. And basically what the test is, it's about, I think, 26 pieces of research over about 30 years, I think starting in about the 70s or so, I guess maybe later. But so they show a person on a screen, like an emotionally laden face, either like a happy face or like a scared or angry face, and have them make a prediction about when the next face is going to be shown on a randomized computer. And even though their guesses are random, you know what I mean, completely just like, 50-50 shot or whatever, whatever it's out of, they have a physiological response that happens even before the computer makes the selection. And the better methodology and the more exact methods that they use, the larger the effect is. And women are consistently better than men, which also fits in with a lot of cultural lore, basically, which I think is also interesting.
I'm not finding this study.
Natural selection.
I'm not finding this meta study. What was the name of it again?
Predictive physiological anticipation preceding seemingly unpredictable stimuli, a meta-analysis.
Okay. From Mossbridge in 2012?
There's two little graphs in there. It's kind of hard to read at first. The one with the big fat tails, if you get to the graph, that's the female, basically. And so you can see there's a very big difference between the control versus getting it guessing correct with females, basically. You see, if you can see the dotted line with the width. So that's I find very interesting, and it also plays. It's relevant.
The problem is that you did a little bait and switch. The problem here is that you did a little bait and switch, John. Because first of all, you're a theist, so we moved to the front of the line when you're not talking about. Wait, somebody says I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, I hear you just fine.
No, so whoever that is just wrong. Also, the person who I'll take care of that in a minute. You're calling in to talk about something that isn't related to theism at all, and as a study, I think if I found the right one, it's from 2012, and it doesn't, in fact, confirm psychic divination is real. It describes a seemingly unexplained, statistically abnormal ability to predict in circumstances that one would expect it to be not predictive. So how is it psychic?
So, I mean, you can use a different word. I mean, I'm just using what normally people would call something like this, and I can explain
You're
more
using
why it's on
you're
people's...
using your word. No, John, be honest. You're using
No,
your word.
If you want, I can
because
explain more.
nowhere in here
nowhere
in here is psychic mentioned. In fact, John, the last sentence of the abstract says the cause of this anticipatory activity, which undoubtedly lies within the realm of natural physical processes, as opposed to supernatural or paranormal ones, remains to be determined.
Oh,
so
here we
you're
go.
taking.
I didn't say supernatural.
John, stop.
You
John,
said
listening.
psychic.
I'm not saying psychics are supernatural. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Can I go into the more research? Because you made a mistake there. You said it's like statistically abnormal. There would have to be between. This is in the study. If you want to go to the methodology and everything, there would have to be. In order for
John, I don't need you. I don't need you to read a study to me that doesn't prove what you think it proves. It doesn't prove what you claimed it proved. I have no problem at all. Would you listen? I have no problem. I have no problem at all with looking into the. Jesus Christ! I have no problem at all with looking into this study.
It's ridiculous.
Wow, keep talking over me. Let's see how well that fucking works out for you. I have no problem at all with the fact that this study exists. It does not do what you implied that it did.
Okay, well, I'll move the word psychic. I don't really give a fuck. Okay, so basically what a prediction is, if you're trying to make a prediction of the future, what you're pulling up like the angry face, that's a memory, okay? And the reason why you have the physiological reaction is because it's basically a memory that, this is it's a quantum thing, but it's falling in line basically with the future. And
this is ridiculous.
This is this.
John, I'm going to mute you, and I want you to listen very, very carefully. When I unmute you, I would like you to explain how you know that it is A, a memory. Actually, we'll just start there. How do you know? Oh, sorry. A memory, and B, quantum mechanics. There we go. I'm unmuting you now.
A memory, I mean in the sense of an engram, except for not in the sense of it's a brain state, it's a snapshot of the whole body. And I was actually going to explain that because, like, essentially, when I'm referring to memory,
John,
I mean like the homeostatic. Let me finish.
You're not
I'm
answering
referring
the question.
To the homeostatic state.
You're
when
not
embryo,
answering the
this
question.
Is a technical
You're not
way
answering.
memory is used. I don't know what you're talking about.
You are spewing nonsense, John. Answer my question. How do you know that what they're experiencing is a memory?
I'm explaining it. Like a memory, the technical definition of a memory is a homeostatic state where basically the whole process says, I'm done building, I can feel it. And the how they feel it and know that they're done building, or even how you should initiate a memory at a certain point, that's a whole other thing, is determined by a quantum effect. Because oftentimes you'll remember things as a kid, and you don't know why you need to know them until you're an adult. And that's part of the quantum. There's no boundaries. No discrete.
John, justify that memory is a quantum effect.
I just did. You remember things?
No, you fucking didn't. All right, I'm going to mute you. I no longer care about your study or your supposed pontifications about it. I have probably seen this before. There were a number, this is 2012, there were a number of similar things where people were claiming, there seems to be a predictive element to certain things. And it also tied into things about pushing buttons and anticipating the buttons. And they were able to predictively push the buttons with better regularity. And so part of it was used in a study to talk about whether or not you have free will, because the decision to push a button takes place before you actually push the button. That difference in the timestamp of the thought instantiation, when it forms, when action is taken, versus when you perceive that you took the action or when you perceive that you took that, those things are still being studied and trying to be understood. But they don't necessarily demonstrate that you don't have free will. But they're a pretty strong indicator that we don't have free will in the way we think we do. When I ask you to demonstrate that memory engrams are quantum mechanics, you need to do that and not just say you did it. So let's try again. How would you demonstrate to everybody? I have no idea what your expertise is, what your training is. How would you demonstrate to someone that a memory is quantum mechanics as simply as possible?
Okay, so I was trying to find a study here that's from 4 days ago. First of all, when I'm referring to Chris Fields, this is a lecture based on the current models of.
John, I'm going to mute you again because this just isn't working. I don't need you to go find a study. And I genuinely don't give a fuck who you're friends with or who Chris Fields is. I asked how you could explain, as simply as possible, why you think memory engrams, quantum mechanics. Try it again. I'm unmuting you.
So, how you know you're done building and that you're onto something, you don't know that you're onto something until it happens in the future. Basically, that's the simplest way to.
That sentence makes no sense. How you know you're done building and onto something you don't know until the future. I asked you to demonstrate why you're saying that memory engrams are quantum mechanics. I don't know what you mean by done building. I don't know what any of that means. Try it again.
Okay, well, this is why, honestly, I wanted to focus on just the study. You know, I mean, you can have different.
Okay, John, I'm going to mute you again because I can no longer take you seriously. See, you called in. You presented a study. We went and looked it up. It doesn't say what you said it was going to say. And then you are going to portray yourself as some sort of expert in quantum mechanics and that you're not into woo and you're not necessarily saying it's supernatural and that there's some predictive thing here. Let me try something else. I'm going to unmute you. Just see if we can get to some, I just want to try and get to some point of agreement.
Well, I am.
So let's try again here, John. You ready? I have a couple of quick questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, sir.
I don't know why you seem so frustrated. I'm genuinely trying to get to agreement. Here we go.
Because I'm one of the 4 thinking researchers in quantum mechanics or thinkers in quantum mechanics, and you're like acting like you're just like blowing me off like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay, I don't know who you are, and who you are is irrelevant. Can you stop being a prick for a second and listen and get the questions down?
Speak for yourself, mate.
I am speaking for myself because it's my fucking show. So here we go.
Cool.
Would you agree?
It sucks.
Would you agree, you whiny little shit, that the study doesn't show
Whoa.
psychic ability?
No, I will not agree with that. You don't know what the fuck is a psychic, sir? Predicting the future or not?
So I'm sorry, John, one of the foremost people in this field. Here.
Oh, actually,
John, what university are you doing this research at?
I was made at a university. I'm a quantum experiment. I'm a fucking Operation Paperclip quantum psychic myself, actually, sir. So this is actually...
Okay. I muted you because we're going to have all kinds of fun. And I'd like to start over. I'm going to retract everything. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to John. John is one of the foremost thinkers and researchers in this area. He's not doing research at a university. He was formed at a university. He's a quantum paperclip psychic. I don't know what any of that means. John, tell us about yourself and how we can know what you say is real and good.
So if we want to go into more of this, astrology is also real. Like the CIA, the government, and the Nazis were trying to tap into that for a reason. And that's because actual...
I'm sorry, John. I literally started over, teed it up, asked you a question, and instead of answering that question, you went off about astrology, the CIA, and Nazis. Have you slipped off of your meds? Let's try this again. Hey, everybody, I want to introduce you to John. John is one of the foremost researchers into, well, he calls himself a quantum paperclip and a psychic that was created at universities, and he's going to tell us how we can know that psychic divination is real, and a little bit about himself. So, John, welcome to the show.
Wait, are you
You're
going
on.
to tell me when you mute me, or are you just going to mute me without telling me? And then...
Okay. I'm sorry that you can't figure it out, but you're muted. There's a beep. You are currently muted, John. You are currently muted. Nobody can hear a word you say. Listen very carefully. I'm giving you the introduction that you so desperately need and that we need in order to understand you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to John. John describes himself as, I don't know, a quantum paperclip created at a university that's a psychic. And while I asked him to describe himself and how we can know that psychic stuff is real, he went on to talk about astrology and the CIA and Nazis. Let's see if we can rein things in. I'm going to unmute John, and I'm going to do that in 10 seconds. And when I start holding up my fingers, I'm not going to say anything important. There will be a beep, and then John will be unmuted. Actually, I'll just do it in 5 seconds because we don't need that much dead air.
Yeah, so by
John,
the way,
you're
I
live.
don't hear a beep when you mute me. I hear a beep when you release me. So I'm talking, and I don't even know what...
Okay, John, I've muted you again. I've muted you again, John, because you're really fucking bad at this. I don't need you to tell me what you hear and what you don't hear. You'll know you're muted because I keep talking and I don't yell at you to shut your fucking mouth and try to talk. Oh, you left, John. John left. One of the world's foremost psychic paperclip expert. I don't know.
I didn't need to be a psychic to see that coming. I'm curious, why is John not making the big bucks, giving speeches and showing his evidence in front of, rooms full of scientists and companies and such? I think Facebook would probably really, really like to have the power to know what you're thinking before you do. It could be argued that they probably do with predictive models, but why is he calling this show getting paid nothing when he could take this world-changing information and go get rich off of it?
It's funny how they intentionally avoid having a decent discussion so that they can whine and cry and leave as if they were wronged. I literally teed that up. Anybody who actually cared and had good information, like, for example, if it was me and I wasn't being understood and we had gotten off to a bad foot and we reset a couple times and somebody said, hey, I'm introducing you to Matt. Matt's a godless heathen who says that it's ridiculous to believe in almost any god that's ever been presented and that he understands this better than you do. Matt, come in and explain this. Thank you. Of all the gods that have been proposed, none have met their burden of proof. You may think yours has, but quite often it's boom, 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 boom. And then you pause and you allow for questions. Instead, you're talking about quantum, paperclip, psychic, universities building stuff. I think the reason John ran away is because I secretly worked for the CIA and Nazis trying to shut down the psychic research from 2012 in a meta study that doesn't show psychic research. It's wild that here we are 13 years after that meta study. You know why John is the foremost person on this? Because nobody else gives a fuck. In 2012, somebody presented this meta study and we realized, hey, this doesn't show what some people think it does. And John and a couple of his friends who think they understand quantum mechanics, whether they do or not, I don't know, decided, oh, no, we know what it is and it's this. And I was that psychic created in a university. Cool, John. You know what I wish they would have created in the university? Somebody who could actually speak and explain something. Somebody who was willing to say, okay, I use some terms that you guys don't understand their meaning or relevance in this particular field. Let me see if I can try it a different way. See, one of the things that I've done is I don't claim to have any expertise in pretty much anything. But the one thing I'm pretty good at, and it's a skill that I've honed over many, many years, is I'm pretty good at taking complex subjects and explaining them in ways that almost anybody can understand. And I don't do that with things like quantum mechanics because I don't understand it well enough to do that. So I don't pretend to know things that I don't. I don't tend to, like if I was trying to explain how your body stores energy, I'm going to get all kinds of it wrong. But essentially, the nutshell is that your body, through food and sunlight and other things, energizes your cells. And there's an electrochemical system in much the same way that a physical battery has chemicals in it that produces electricity until it's depleted. Your body has something similar, but you're constantly fueling it with the food that you eat. This is why you don't die when the sun goes down. But you would die when you stop eating for long enough. That's how the system runs down. I think that's a pretty simple introductory explanation that anybody could grasp. John, when you can do that with psychics and not just saying, hey, I found a meta study from 2012 that doesn't say what I think it says, but I'm one of the world's foremost experts and I was created in a university to be better than the rest of everybody else, cool. Then we can try again.
Yeah, the study quite literally does not mention psychic, quantum. There's one word, memory, used when describing how we base our future predictions based off of past experiences in our memories. But if you go down to the abstract and you also go down to the conclusion of the study, it makes no conclusions about this. It says there's still this is a peculiar phenomenon we see. There's a lot of things about it we don't know. There are plausible and less plausible explanations for it. And there's leaving it there. But John, wanting to be the famous flim flam artist that I think he's trying to be, he wants to take this and fill in. It's basically God of the gaps. Take this article or this study and say, we have a lot of unknowns in here. I'm going to jam whatever I want in there, and I'm the expert on that. And now, hey, I'm big and important, and I can talk to you about it.
Hey, we're gonna take a couple more calls. There's one thing I want to do first because somebody in chat dared me, and while I haven't tried to pay too much attention to chat, they dared me to do something that I had already done. So if Arden can embigify me once again, let me.
1 second.
Bye. No, that's.
There we go.
Whoa, he's like, oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay. There's a filter on there that's not showing the entire thing. Crap. How do I get the... Sorry, there's a cropping filter here that I want to remove. There we go. There we go. So you won't be able to fully read it without me zooming in, but I Googled, do non-citizens have due process rights? And the AI overview, which I'm not paying attention to normally, but it starts with, yes, non-citizens are entitled to due process rights under the U.S. Constitution, which applies to all persons within the country's borders, not just citizens, because persons is the word that's actually used in the Constitution. Then when you go to the Library of Congress, that's a second one. Look, you can see I've already clicked on it there. Aliens physically present in the United States, regardless of their legal status, are recognized as persons and guaranteed due process of law by the Fifth Amendment. Then there's the American Immigration Council that talks about due process in courts. Do non-citizens have the right to due process in the U.S.? Yes, the Constitution guarantees due process to rights to all persons, not just citizens. The Vera Institute, what does due process mean for immigrants and why? And it's, yes, the 5th and 14th Amendment due process clause protect every person within U.S. borders. So this individual who said that I would be too scared to, you can take us back to a real show now. The individual who said I would be too scared to do what I had already done and just did, and that I hadn't actually looked it up, is demonstrably, ridiculously wrong and embarrassingly so there, Johnny Burke. While in U.S. jurisdiction. Yes, Johnny, that's what happens when you're in the United States, you dumb motherfucker. I didn't say people in Switzerland who've never been to the United States have due process. I'm sorry that you're too stupid to be honest about this, but now you've been schooled 3 times. It's time for you to take a little break. We got other calls.
Also, before you get to the next calls, I won't dox John, but I did, someone in chat knew him, and so I Googled him. And it looks like he has an acting career that hasn't really gotten off the ground. And I just have to say, I'm really shocked with what a delightful personality he has and his riveting performance at the end of that call. I'm truly shocked he hasn't been found by some sort of a casting director. They're truly missing out. He seems delightful.
I love the fact that now Hypa Yazoo is telling me that what Johnny Burke is saying for people outside of the U.S. borders, as if I didn't just address that. I never fucking said that. Non-U.S. citizens have constitutional protections when they're in the United States. Nobody's stupid enough to think that somebody in Japan who's never been to the United States is protected by the U.S. Constitution, except for when we are occupying them and things like that. Jesus fucking Christ, you guys are so goddamn dumb. Dumb. There's no 2 ways to paint this. You are either dumb or dishonest as fuck. I tried calling in, but it's busy. That's a lie too. That is an absolute fucking lie. At no point have all lines been full on the show, Johnny Burke. You're a fucking liar. And you know what? I don't do well with liars. And you've now made me avoid my chat rule today because you're a lying piece of shit. So guess who doesn't get to talk in my channel anymore? Johnny Burke tried to call in. No, you didn't, you fucking liar. Hey, Will's an atheist from Kentucky calling in, talking about deconversion and stuff. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys?
I'm much better now that I banned a liar. One of my favorite things in life is exposing liars. Trump is a liar. MAGA's liars. Johnny Burke, 020 in chat is a liar. Andrew Wilson's a liar. I love exposing liars.
I love listening to it. I think the first call you tossed cocaine in the air, and the second call you had a quantum paperclip created at a university, and I don't know what that leaves for me, but I'm here.
Well, you better make a good will.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to ask a quick question. So while I was on the phone or on hold, I was thinking through an argument for God that I wanted you all to help me defeat. I know that's not specifically what I told the call screener. Can I run that by you all really quickly?
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. So I'm sure you all have probably engaged with this before, but I just want help thinking through it. So if you're familiar with systems theory, it posits how you can determine the outcome you can determine the product, you can determine the purpose of a system by observing what it produces. And also that a system is comprised of interconnections, components, and a purpose. And so that suggests to me that if that's what a system is, then the universe is a system. And if that's the case, then that indicates that the universe has a purpose. And to me, I have trouble separating purpose from intent and intent from agent. And I'm wondering if you all could talk me through this one.
Why don't you go, Eric? I've talked a lot, and I think, honestly,
Oh, man.
I have a really kind of boring answer for this.
So I know nothing about systems theory, so I have the wiki up here right now. So what I do is when I'm hearing, you know, a new concept, and then, you know, somebody says something like, you mentioned the word purpose for it. To me, that's kind of was like a light went off in my head. It's like, okay, we're going to be talking about purpose. The output of a system is its purpose. We're kind of conflating the function with the like supposed intent behind it. So I think in a case like that, we're probably sneaking in with the word purpose some type of intent, which requires a mind. I have to look at the article, but doing a Google search and going to the wiki, system or purpose is only mentioned twice in the entire wiki on this, and one is in association with quote, the benefit of humankind is the purpose of science, which that doesn't really apply. And then the second one is the goals of a system theory are to model a system's dynamics, constraints, conditions, and relations, such as purpose in parentheses. So I guess my answer to that would be, I don't think purpose in the way that most people would use it, especially in the way that a theist would use it, doesn't apply here. We're talking about the function of something or the output of something that doesn't necessitate intent. It can have some type of output without some mind being behind it. That would be probably my preliminary response to it before I dig deeper.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, I think systems science and systems theory is largely, to my understanding, applied to social sciences to explain things like the manifestation of social marginalization in our systems, positing that it's not the stated purpose of a system that dictates what its purpose is, but it is what that system produces. And so following that line, for me, I can go to, well, the universe apparently produced life on a marble surrounded by hostility. So perhaps that was a product of purpose. And then again, that gets me back to intent. But that response makes sense. The response makes sense.
Yeah, and I would say to that yeah, sure, there's the possibility is there. I can't deem such a thing to be impossible. But just because we can't rule it out doesn't mean we should also include it. It's until we have better evidence to support intent or purpose in the you know, mind sense, we can safely ignore such a possibility until we have evidence to show us that it's actually there. Go ahead.
So in systems theory, the way you described it, systems theory begins with a presumption of intent, because for what you described, the definition of a system necessarily has purpose, not just function, but purpose. And purpose is contingent on intent. Is it possible for a non-purposeful system to exist such that instead of purpose, the system has function, even if it wasn't intended to have that function? For example, the fact that there's more than one way to describe a system. And so when you take the features of the system that you described, if you include all of those, and instead of purpose, which smuggles in intent, you said function, you're like, you can tell the purpose of a system by its output. accept that that's an inference that isn't necessarily justified. The fact that a system puts something out doesn't mean that that was intended or that it was its purpose, even if that's mostly what it puts out. Like byproducts are also put out, whether they're intended or not. And for a system that does something, for example, my body, you could describe as a system that takes in energy, and I don't know what the function is other than experiencing or whatever. Where's the demonstration that there's any intent or purpose in my existence? I don't see any. And so if that means that it doesn't fit as a system under that particular definition, then I'm not a system. But I may be a different type of system, and we may be doing an equivocation fallacy on two different categories of systems.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because I think when I was trying to reason my way through it, as it related to human beings, I was thinking that, okay, so of course we're comprised of systems that perform functions that lead to outcomes. And so perhaps we could say that those outcomes are the purposes of those systems. But then I also think of us as conscious beings, and I arrived at the only place I could get with that was that would suggest that what we do is our purpose, to the extent that is the product of human beings, is ultimately what we do. And that got me back to there. But I certainly get what you're saying regarding sort of smuggling in a lot of baggage with purpose in the concept of the description of a system. It does still leave me wanting a little bit as I apply that to social systems, but I think that may be the equivocation that you pointed out.
But social systems, by definition, there is no social without intent.
Yeah.
Rocks aren't social. And I think it was Stephen Hawking who pointed out that if the universe exists for any purpose, it's for creating black holes. The question then is, when you see what a proposed system does, whether it's let's say category A, category B, category C system, I don't know, maybe there's not that many, whatever. When you see a system function, is its biggest output its purpose? Maybe it's just a really inefficient system. Maybe while I produce less poop than I produce noise, maybe the purpose of my body is to produce poop, even though noise is just an overwhelming byproduct. Or maybe it's for me to do thinking, and both the noise and the poop are byproducts. Maybe there's no purpose to it at all, and what we're doing is looking at the function of a thing and saying, that's what it seems to do the most of. It must have been made for that. And I mean, cells are basically little factories, take in energy and put stuff out. And it's really easy to look at a cell and say, oh, here's the function of this cell. But that is separate from, here's the purpose of this cell. And we can describe it in a sort of kind of a metaphorical sense or an analogous sense. But the mere fact that the universe has produced us doesn't mean we were the purpose. The mere fact that the universe has produced thought doesn't mean thought was the purpose. Why not black holes? Why not universes? Dead, lifeless universes. The overwhelming majority of bodies of matter are lifeless. Why isn't that the presumed purpose of the universe? I think it's arrogance on our part to presume that we were the intended purpose of the universe.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. I think, as I think about it, and please get me right where I have it wrong. So as it relates to human beings, I think it becomes more difficult because we are made up of collections of systems. So if we think of our digestive system, if we observe that one specifically, we perhaps could conclude that its purpose is to produce poop, and that in fact allows us to know when it is not acting in accordance with its purpose. But I would say, as it relates to the universe, I wouldn't say that it's, well, I don't make these conclusions. These are just arguments that I'm thinking through. But as it relates to the universe, I wouldn't necessarily say that we are the purpose, but that we are among the purposes. But I don't even know if that is reasonable to even say within the context of this discussion. I don't know.
I think one of my favorite examples.
Yeah.
What's a chair?
Oh, that one's tough. It is it's a seat. That feels like cheating. It probably is, but a seat.
So it would be generally considered fair for most people to describe a chair as something with the intended purpose of being sat upon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But that precludes some chairs or things that we would use as chairs, right? For example,
Sure.
If I chop down a tree and there's a stump there, I can sit on that, and I made that stump. How is that different from a chair? And how does it become different? And to what extent does it become different if, after cutting it down and using it as a seat, I then decide, I then decide to scoop out a butt shape, then lop off that top and put it on some legs and make it into something that we recognize more as a chair. At what point is it a chair? Isn't it a chair the entire time? And does it have nothing at all to do with the purpose or the perceived usage? But instead, it's me saying, this is intended to be a chair. It's possible for a tree to grow into a shape that looks like an intended chair. I mean, we see rocks that look like people. We see vegetables that look like animals and penises and vulva and everything all over the place. When you find a weirdly shaped vegetable, it's absolutely hilarious because it tricks that part in our brain that goes, hang on a minute, did God make this carrot look like a pussy? Why would God do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really, really good points. It also makes me think of the Peter Pepper, which I took a crack at growing once in the garden. And if you have not done so, I recommend you do it. It's a lot of fun, or at least look them up. But yeah, I think, yes, that makes a lot of sense. I think when I was thinking through even posing this question, I was asking myself, well, okay, does a blender have a purpose? Because I am certain that a blender does not have intent, but then I would go to, well, that's because the existence of the blender is predicated on something that gave it intent. And so when I try to apply that to the universe,
thing, there you're switching. The intent exists in making a thing for a purpose, not in the thing itself. So like, if I was an intentional creation, I am not the intent and I am not an embodiment of the intent. The intent exists separately and produced me. Like if I'm an intended creation, the intent isn't with me. The intent is with the creator.
right. So
For example, Will,
I think-
I have a sealed box of Cards Against Humanity over there on the floor. The intent of the creator that the card game was for people to play it, but I now have it and I use it as a doorstop. It is still sealed and has been on my floor for like 3 years as a doorstop. So
I would say the intent of the creator was to sell it.
Maybe that too. Yeah.
Whether you
I guess it really
playing
depends.
it or not.
I guess it really depends on his motivation. Does he want people to have fun, or does he want to make money? And those aren't necessarily incompatible. But actually, that actually goes to something I wanted to mention. When we observe certain things in the universe, I see conflicting. If there is purpose behind it, I see these purposes in direct contradiction with each other sometimes. Because it could be said that, the universe is here to produce humans, but the universe is also here to kill us. Like, we have this small speck, this small safe haven that keeps us alive, and that can change at literally any moment. 2 seconds from now, a gamma ray burst could pass through our planet and sterilize us. None of us will see it coming, and we are gone. An asteroid can pass too close to us and knock us out of orbit. An asteroid can impact us and kill us within moments. Like, we see the universe do something, but we also see the universe is actively doing the opposite, actively trying to undo what it did. And to me, that doesn't smack to me of intelligent intent behind that. That to me is just chaotic physical processes, and we happen to be the result of one of them, not because of intent, but just because of circumstance. And we have lots of other processes that will eventually one day get us. Like, one day humanity will be gone. But when I look at that, either there's a mind behind it, and this mind is like schizophrenic, bipolar, or something. Like it is actively working against itself, or that mind isn't there. And when I look at it and I go, okay, well, I don't have any evidence of the mind to begin with. I have nothing but naturalistic processes to explain it, and naturalistic processes perfectly explain my latter explanation of just we're just simply the happenstance product of these physical processes in motion. I'm going to stick with that until I have evidence to the other explanation that I had.
Gotcha. I really, I appreciate you all helping me think it through. I think I'm almost there. I'm still foggy in a couple of little corners of the argument that I need to sweep out and address, just in my thought process. But that was very useful.
I think you're asking the right questions. Yeah, I think you're well on your way.
Yeah, I think one thing to remember, and it's probably something we should spend more time reminding people, is we're telling you what we think. We might be right. We might not be right. I mean, like we might have made a really simple error here right now, or there might be a whole bunch of stuff where the only answer that we can really say that we should say is, I don't know. Like, I don't know why things are. I don't know whether or not this has purpose. And maybe our criteria for determining what has an intended purpose and what doesn't, maybe that's all wrong. We're always just trying to, make the most sense out of what we know and understand as best we can.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
The time to believe.
So
the time to believe that X has a purpose that was intended is when it has been strongly demonstrated that X has an intended purpose. Like, my cell phone has a number of intended purposes. One is for them to make money, but its function, they design it for specific functions that I seek out. And so this is a crafted device, and there might be 50 different intended purposes of this device, especially when you start getting into something like a cell phone. But we can confirm all of them. We can talk to the designers. We can investigate how and why stuff's done. When the same thing's true with the house I live in and the car that I drive. Somebody's got an intended purpose is to sell it. Somebody else's intended purpose is to make money off of it in the long run and maintenance. But the simplistic purpose is the house is the thing that's designed for me to live in, and the car is the thing that's designed for me to drive. And we have strong evidence of both of those being intentional creations and no evidence of them occurring naturally. And yet when it comes to things like life and the universe, we have mountains of evidence of them occurring naturally and no evidence of them being intentionally designed by some external force.
Yeah, that's pretty much the long and the short. So I had the topic that I mentioned to the call screener, but I won't go into a separate question, so you all can move on. I did have one quick one for you, Matt. Okay. So I found you from one of your debates, and it was the one with Jordan Peterson, and I've watched it a bunch of times. I know you've talked about it many times, but there was one particular moment where you all had this back and forth about propositions. And you asked him to name something that was demonstrably true that could not be put into a proposition. And he said it was very easy, but I think you all moved on and you ultimately bailed him out of that situation. And every time I watch it, I'm like, I wish he would have made him answer. Do you know of anything that he could have said there? Or, I mean, certainly he would have found a way to squirm around, but Are you aware of anything that he could have reasonably responded there?
No. And to be honest, I don't really remember the details of that. And I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad it resonated with somebody. But I probably bailed him out. One of the things is that when you're doing a live show in front of an audience with somebody that you never worked with before, you kind of got to watch for dead air and how much time is spent talking past each other. So there's a number of times in that thing with Jordan where it's okay. We could keep belaboring this point, but I don't think there's any likelihood we're going to get any closer, especially if, as was the case frequently, his answers were meandering and unclear. And so I'm going to bail him out on stuff like that. It's you do that with everybody, and people, by the way, do it with me as well. I have co-hosts here, I have producers here, and it's like Matt's getting ready to go on one of his 45 fucking minute sermons. Let's shut this down because the real benefit's going to be in the first 30 seconds or the first minute and then the last minute. So let's just skip the middle bit, type thing. Everybody does that. I don't know what his answer would be. And unfortunately, despite him saying on stage that he'd be happy to do this again, he immediately left the stage, went down and hid in his dressing room and refused to ever talk to me again. So.
Well, it's just in boss business. That's how it goes. But I would love to call back another time and talk to you all about deconversion from theism and navigating Trumpism. But I will do that another time, and you all have a good night.
If you want to, Will, if you have time, I don't want to be disrespectful to our other caller. I can put you back in the queue. Let me take this call from another caller, and then if it doesn't run on too long, and you're still there, we can still address your topic. I just don't want to. Because you waited on hold for a long time.
I listen to the show every week anyway, so yeah.
Let me put you back in the queue, Will. Thank you. That's something we should maybe consider doing a little bit more often. One of the things that a lot of people don't frequently get is, we have a number of phone lines here and there are people who are waiting. This other person has been waiting for an hour and 6 minutes to ask a question that they're, the answer that they get might not be useful or good. So, Will Beld. Maybe we'll call back. Jaime's calling from somewhere in the U.S. Pronouns he, him. Is an atheist who wants to know how I would respond or act if I was currently in the military. Hey, Jaime, how you doing?
Good evening, Matt and Eric. How are you this evening? I want to preface my question before I go ahead. Just a quick comment about where we are right now in the state and in the country. Callers like Andrew, and I've only heard part of the call, but callers like Andrew and others, and this is a serious comment. When people on the show sometimes ask, well, why can't you live and let live and let people believe what they want and what real impact does it have on you? For those like Andrew who actually unfortunately have bought the lies and so on, it's not just that they disagree, it has real world impacts for those who disagree with them, but even for those who do agree with them, that unfortunately whether blinded or lied to or made to buy into the lies, and it has impacts on both on the right and the left and the center. So and as I go along with my question, it is something that has a real world impact. So it's not just, Matt went ahead and dismantled this caller and made him feel like a fool. There's more real impact to it. So it's not just fun and games. But onto my question, and like you said, I'm probably gonna I can expect how the answers how you would respond to it. But just a little bit of context, if I may. I've been in the military for more than 10 years active duty. And as they say, presidents come and go, and we keep going, and we are within some sort of spectrum of normalcy, of decorum, whether it's the right or the left taking office, but there's some sort of expectation that there's certain lines we don't cross. And whether it's breaking up the Posse Comitatus Act or using the military to protect federal law enforcement to break the laws. I don't know if it comes down to it in a real world situation, how I would go about disobeying unlawful orders or going against the president and so on. And
Yep.
people at times ask themselves, what would they do back in 1930s Germany? Would they have the moral compass to go against it and potentially suffer the consequences of doing so, to stand up for what's right? And I'm in that predicament right now, and it's not that far-fetched. So I guess back to my original question, if you were in this predicament when you were serving, how do you think you would go about it?
Yeah, I thank you, first of all, Jaime, for the question, and Dan, for your service. And I'm going to give you a long answer, but the short answer is I have no idea. The period of time when I was in, I was still a believer, but just kinda. I mean, I didn't really care about it. So the religious aspect wouldn't have made a great deal of difference, but I was also a much more right-leaning, and I was still pretty indoctrinated into kind of authoritarian type stuff. I would not have followed an illegal order, but as you well know, the difficulty in being an active duty military person is it's not up to you to decide what is or isn't an illegal order. And it is an incredible risk to refuse an order that you feel is unlawful. And it can come with a penalty as high as your life, if not, time in Leavenworth, even if you turned out to be right. And so I'm not overly critical of active duty military people for following orders to some extent. I think there's some baseline stuff like violating the Posse Comitatus Act and deploying active duty military to American cities in opposition to the will of the people and the government and the governors and everything else. But I don't know what I would do. Fortunately, I'm not in right now, but also fortunately, when I was in, I was not in that sort of position. I was in the Navy. I was on aircraft carriers. I was on small boats. There's no way I would have been deployed in any situation like that. But I can tell you that if I was in the military right now, given what I know and think right now, I would be actively working to get out as quickly as I could. And I already did that once. When I left the military, I'd served a little right at over 8 years, but I had, obviously already been discharged and reenlisted twice. Once at the end of my 6 year, and then once just at the 8. But what's the best way to phrase this so people get it? I reached a point where I was not going to advance further because there were too many people in the military. I kept acing the test, and there were like 400 guys ahead of me, and so I was stuck at E5. And I'm running a division on my own with no divo, and I'm at E5, and my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want to be there anymore. I had recently re-upped and decided I didn't want to, and I was also a very heavy smoker at the time, and so the PT was getting harder and harder. I never liked it, but it was getting harder and harder. So what I ended up doing was, over the period of 1 year, I basically failed the PT test 3 times. Not explicitly intentionally, but I didn't give a fuck to try not to. I was having running difficulties and breathing difficulties, and it was just a lot easier just to say, okay, let me fail this and get out and go on about my life. I've already done 8.5 years. There's no shame in that. And I don't feel bad about it. I would do something like that right now if I needed to get out, for fear of, if my options were stay in and be forced to violate the law and ethics and continue to serve under this administration, and then the options were fail the PT test and get out, or go to Leavenworth, or eventually face other potentials, I would take the route that I did, but for ethical reasons rather than disillusioned reasons, I guess.
Well, I appreciate not passing, like you said, not passing judgment on active duty military. And although I don't at times blame those who do, because yes, it's all volunteer force, and I volunteered to do so. And that's essentially the conundrum I'm in, because I've heard others not necessarily articulated the way you did, but essentially say, well, you can just get out. However, when I joined, it wasn't at all out of patriotism, and people join for any number of reasons, but the data shows, and I've seen it firsthand, that if someone really has it going on in their life, they don't really join the military voluntarily. And people are down on their luck for any number of reasons, and that was part of why I joined. And I committed to 20, well, not committed on paper, but mentally I went into it to complete 20 and retire. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said me too. Sorry.
Yeah. So I, knowing that things may be different, and when I joined, I wasn't necessarily as left as I am. However, I've become a lot more, and some might say even radically left, as time went on. And even that did not necessarily ever, it never dawned on me because of my political beliefs to quit the military. And during the first Trump administration, it definitely wasn't as bad as it was right now. And it kind of came up in conversation, but it was never something that I seriously considered. But if I would believe that in 3 years we would have another president, whether right or left, that might make it a little easier, but we may not necessarily even get there. So the conundrum is, am I going to try to live through this administration and hope for the best or anything better than what is right now, or know that it's only going to get worse from bad to worse, and perhaps cut my losses as it is right now?
I do not envy your position. Nobody can make that decision but you. One thing I want you to remember, and I want everybody to remember, especially when they're talking about military, because I have some people who just shit all over the military as if everybody's a baby killing monster that just fucking follows orders and everything else. No, there are people who go in there for a career. There are people who are duped into going into there. There are people who go in there with the best intentions. There are people who go in there who aren't rah gun crazy. There are people who go in there to avoid prison. I can't count how many people served underneath me because it was the judge basically said, okay, I'm going to throw you in prison or you can go join the military. And they did. What you volunteered to do was sacrifice your rights for the required order that is necessary to do the things that other people can't always do and wouldn't always do. And it still means we're accountable. It still means we're responsible for the terrible things that our government does. It still means that we are complicit in the mistakes. But we did so by saying, I'm willing to set aside my rights, my free speech rights, my right to travel, and do what I want when I want, my right to quit a job. I don't think people fully understand what's sacrificed, even in the short term, with a proposed massive benefit of, for example, I went in 1987. If I did 20 years, I would have retired in 2007. That's 18 years ago. I'm only 56, and I would be sitting here as an 18-year retiree. Getting out after 8.5 years of a 20-year plan, and actually you can retire at 15 with less, as you know, or you could. I don't know if you can now, but getting out at 8.5 with a 20-year stint was completely unnecessary. I could have done the rest of it. I could have found a way to do the rest of it and gotten the retirement. It's just I was so disillusioned by the military, and there were so many changes going on, and I was in such poor physical health. I mean, Pete Hegseth would have hated me. I was getting fatter, and he doesn't want fat military people. I was not able to pass the physical fitness test towards the end. Probably couldn't have the last time, but I don't think people realize what's actually given up. And while the military is full of some incredible pieces of trash, just like everywhere else in the world, it's also full of some people who were lied to, and some people who had the best intentions, and some people who are in fact honorable and want to protect and defend the Constitution and want to be that safeguard to keep America in the position that it once was. And now I no longer have any confidence with this administration that is likely to continue. And I would definitely, I hear what you're saying, particularly if, do you want to, wait and see what happens if we get another president in 3 years? I know if I was in your position, I think I would give it some more time, but I don't know what you're going through. And I mean, if you're calling the show, you might be ready to fuck it, right now. But I'm not going to judge you harshly either way. Right up until you start killing American citizens just because it's orders, and then I'll judge you.
Yeah, no doubt. And sure, we'll never get to that point, or at least I don't. I mean, none of us should, but
I won't.
And it might make it easier. But if you're already in the thick of it, like you said earlier, it's hard to know how one would go about and sacrifice even more, like you said, potentially Leavenworth, with how you interpret what is lawful and what's not. The last thing I'll comment in what I said at the opening, I am currently gig working because of non-pay, and I don't need anyone to pity me. This is my life and so on. But it definitely doesn't make it easier when I'm already contemplating the conundrum I'm in, to when be used as political pawns. And no one, if anyone joins the military thinking they'll get rich off of it, is delusional. Like the military pay, as you know, is never reaches minimum wage, never catches up there, and definitely with inflation. But there are some benefits, of course. I won't deny the health benefits and so on, and retirement and whatnot. But not knowing where your next paycheck is going to come, having already living on minimum wage, is pushing so many of us to that brink. Whether it's being in breadlines, or like me, working after hours and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Being used as political pawns is always the case, but more so now when, well, not to mention the silly 130 million that he took, which is once again illegal as well, which is a spit in the bucket, however, to one pay period. These things have real impact on real people, and no matter what your opinion is of us in the military, it has real world impacts. Like I said at the opening, things that we have no control over, and then of course they thank us for our service, and especially politicians will get up there and always try to get a photo up and compete who can figuratively be supporting the troops the most, while not really care at the end of the day. I guess that's my final comment on that.
Yeah, 100%. You guys are used as props. You guys sacrifice your rights. And in the same way that we threw tea into the ocean and said no taxation without representation, I fully support granted, you'd all get shot or thrown in prison, but I would fully support the military saying, if you're not paying, I'm not sacrificing my rights anymore. I'm not going to go blow people up for you. I'm not going to go kill people and break things if you're not fucking paying me. And you can't even do that without the worst possible consequences. So I don't envy your position. I wish you all the best. I hope if you and others find a way through this, that you find a way to potentially, I'd like for you to find a way to save a career and save our military, because I'm not in now and I don't know how bad it is, but I hear from people on occasion, and it seems that much in the same way the Department of Labor is pushing for this rah-rah white Protestant labor force from the 50s, that aspects of our military, especially with Pete in charge, are trying to do something similar within the military. And that's why they're wanting to get rid of, anybody who's, you got a little fat on your desk job. I'm sorry, but the military needs all kinds. It's a fucking a country. It's a city unto itself. And you need people who can do all kinds of stuff. I think we should have people in the military who are perhaps disabled and working desk jobs. Not everybody needs to be able to go march into country. But I wish you all the best. I hope you find a way to get through this, and I hope that you come out with people at least understanding that you were put in you voluntarily put yourself in a position where you don't get to make some of the most basic decisions about what's going to impact your life and everybody else's life on the planet, that you are forced to essentially trust in the way that Andrew wants to trust that the people, the Venezuelans on the boats are bad guys, and it doesn't matter because there wasn't due process or anything else yet. You guys are forced to just trust. And even when you have good reason not to, you don't have the power to do much about it. And I remember it. I would never do it again, even though I loved the time that I was in right up until I decided to get out, or got out, whether I decided or not. So yeah, check back in when you make a decision or if things get better.
Absolutely. And if I can have just another minute, I know I've taken a lot of your time and I appreciate it. If I can make one other comment. Yeah.
Hello?
I want to paint a quick picture of how bad it is right now, and it's a whole lot worse than anyone can imagine. Even, and I believe even for yourself that has served. I'll paint the picture of a new policy of the grooming standards. And being in the medical field in the military myself, we had to follow through with this. And envision a room at an early morning instead of PT with 99% black and brown soldiers who are overly represented in the service, more than the overall population of minorities. And with the changing grooming standards for being clean shaven, having to follow through to either you get on a profile or a chit, like you know it, and get on some treatment for pseudofolliculitis, barbe or whatnot, or get out. And you have 12 months to figure that out, or sooner if you choose to just quit and get separated. And it's not a medical separation, it's an administrative separation. And just that image alone, let alone the policy itself, but being so blatantly directed, and it's not even subtle anymore, to black and brown service members is just it's disgusting, and I can't paint it any better. For those who understand it, I wish we can do something about it, and for those who can't, I wish I painted a good enough picture to envision how this is blatantly just following through on a white nationalist agenda. And like I said earlier, I sure hope I gave you another reason to convince me to cut my losses and run. But I truly hope that this is not just going to go from bad to worse, and we can salvage some of this, not just in the military, but in the country overall.
I agree, and I thank you so much. Appreciate it, Jaime. Yeah, when I was in, I ran first division on an aircraft carrier in the midst of it. I was eventually with FIB-CB2. There were a number of sailors who had to get no shave chits, and they were, because we had a glut, we had too many people in the military, they were starting to get harder on them. They weren't pushing the standards quite like they are now, but there were. I do remember wondering, why is this an administrative discharge when it's a medical condition? Granted, there should be a way for people to potentially keep their job or keep a career if they can't do job A. You can't wear a gas mask because of this, or you can't get a good seal. Okay, I can see that. But at a minimum, there should be some position or a medical discharge so that it doesn't end up looking like they did something wrong rather than we decided to punish something about who they fundamentally were and had no control over. So, all right. Well, keep in touch. Let us know if things change. Thanks so much for checking in. I wish you all the best. That does it for calls today on the show. We're going to read all the super chats that came in there. I think we're still doing everything over $10, but we may make changes at some point. We'll see. Before we start digging in on them, what a wild show to go from no calls to a really long discussion with Andrew. That I think the thing that pisses me off when I'm on with Andrew is that Andrew constantly makes me optimistic and then breaks my heart. Andrew will say something, accept some correction, and then when you try to teach a little bit more for somebody who's potentially here to learn, sidetracks and diverts and dances around and try to, but what about, can you solve this? Can you solve that? Can you solve this? It's like, hey, let me explain to you how an internal combustion engine works. Yeah, but what about horse hooves? Okay. It's like, it's common, hard staying on focus.
Common defense mechanism whenever you're like that. It's like, it's very, very common. We see that kind of stuff.
And then we had a number of other calls that, obviously, I don't think John was serious or for real.
No, not really.
And maybe that's why John's a failed actor, because if he'd have been better at it, he would have convinced me he was real. Maybe. I hope you maybe get some practice, John. Maybe try some method stuff rather than just sitting there smugly laughing behind the scenes. I don't know. But I'm glad maybe
John should try out miming. Just stop talking.
Sorry we didn't get back to Will. I don't know. Will may have dropped with the calls screen stuff that got closed off. But Jaime's call was a great way to end. I can't imagine what today's military personnel are going through, because fundamentally, when I was in, I shit you not, I was in from 1987 to 1995, 96. I don't remember us spending much time talking politics at all. I was mostly apolitical, but the president was who the president was. And it didn't matter whether it was W or Clinton. That was the person in charge. And they very clearly had the best interests of the United States at heart, even if they disagreed about what was in the best interest. And they did their best to follow and respect the law and follow and respect the troops and the sacrifices they were making. They didn't show up and stand in front of the troops and talk about how we need to go back to steam. Let's have steam. Steam on those catapults. Steam. You know what? Trump is taking us back to the steam engine era by destroying the world and the progress that we've made, so that we don't have any other option but to go back to steam. It is bizarre to me to watch Pete Hegseth, a problematic, seemingly alcoholic, completely unqualified Fox News host in charge of the Department of Defense, standing up there lecturing people who've served their entire lives on what they need to do in there, just because his rich buddy put him in charge. Not because he fucking earned it. Quit, got out. Those generals put their fucking time in, and you need to be showing them respect instead of propping up your 1950s Ayn Rand fountainhead cover. We need to look like machismo because I want to get laid more. Pete Hegseth's an embarrassment to this country, just like every other completely underqualified and stupid as fuck, deplorable person that Trump has put in position. These are the basketful. Not all Trump supporters, not all Republicans, not even all MAGA are necessarily deplorable. Although at this point, if you're still MAGA, you're pretty fucking deplorable, because all the problems aren't enough to shut you down. But the people that he's put in charge, the people who are running this, are suck-up, sycophants, liars, and completely incompetent. And they are an embarrassment to this nation. And I hope people around the world know. I hope they're getting better news than a good chunk of Americans are, a more accurate model of how fucked up things are. And yet some of us are still barely cautiously optimistic. And we're not going to quit until there's no hope left to fix this. This isn't Republican, Democrat. W was a dipshit, but I think he was a decent-ish person. Certainly not like this. And the people they put up there, they knew. They disagreed politically, but they knew the law and they respected the precedent, and they knew that they'd have to bide their time. And what happened is a pocket group of people, a pocket group of fundamentalist, Christian nationalist, garbage thinkers who couldn't stand the fact that this country wasn't a Christian nation, wasn't founded on Christian principles, didn't follow Christ, didn't follow the law, and had freedom for everybody and no special privileged place for Christians or white people or Protestants or whatever fucking category they imagined, sat there and bided their time and came up with Project 2025 and found just exactly the right billionaire dipshit that they could manipulate into making their plan come to fruition while lying through all of their fucking teeth nonstop. This is the fascist states of America. It ain't dead yet. Some of us are basically giving it mouth to mouth right now. And I appreciate everybody tuning in to help us spread whatever we can of what's left of the word and fighting the misinformation. Hopefully, at least Andrew learned that Democrats are not trying to keep the government shut down so they can give illegal aliens our fucking health care. We have citizens that don't have access to health care, that don't have access to a basic wage, who are now being denied money from the government, and they're starving and unable to pay their bills or feed their kids because the Republicans are trying to use this as a prop to hide the Epstein files and everything else. Oh, I didn't forget. I'm going to say it every show over and over till they fucking bury me or release every bit of it. Let's get on to some super chats. Thank you guys so much. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. The right is getting people canceled. I thought they were against cancel culture. Oh, how the turns are tabled. Yeah. That is absolutely wild to me.
Rules for thee, not for me. Yeah. $9.99 from Greg Markowski. Here's a few bucks to help you exercise free speech. Thanks, Greg.
I am working on a couple things at the same time. There you go. By the way, before I read this next one, Greg, I just saw your email right before we went live. And without going into details, because I don't want to give personal stuff, my sincere condolences. Thank you for reaching out and letting me know. And thank you for your continued support through all this. I greatly appreciate being included in thoughts like that and the support from you and Paul. So my condolences. $10 from Benny Blaze. A haiku I wrote. The right wing fear all. They mask up to cover up, insecure always. They're not masked up anymore.
Another $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. I'm not afraid to say that I'm ashamed of this country. This isn't how it's supposed to be. This is definitely not what the founding fathers and multiple generations of our people had in mind for just barely out of the first quarter of the 21st century. So, yeah, I'm right with you, Matt. I have hope. I'm doing what I can, what little I can. I try to do, but it's pretty grim. But it's not hopeless yet. So we got to keep on fighting.
Yeah, I got a number of health issues. I have still, despite everything, I've got I don't know how many categories of privilege, and I'm going to fucking burn through all of it till they lock me up or kill me, because I'm not going to let the 8.5 years that I served and everybody I love and everything that we were supposed to stand for fall by the wayside so the rich can get richer. And so they can pretend that having a servile underclass is the ideal society. Servile and silent, I would say. $10 from Joshua Everett. If the country were just, everyone involved in ordering the arrest of the Tennessee man and those who made the decision to hold him should have to spend at least 3 times the days in jail themselves. I'd be good with that.
Yeah, I'm all for when those in power, when those in position of law enforcement abuse that power, their sentences should be multiplied.
Yep.
I think they do that in some areas. It's called under the color of law, but I want to see that universally because I've seen way too many times law enforcement abuse their position and either get a slap on the wrist or they get a very light sentence. Yeah, it's really infuriates me. I'm not one for witnessing injustice and being okay with it. So when I see kind of that kind of stuff, I get really, really upset. We have $10 from Space Barbarian 3484. Turn the ballroom into a free male organ oncology clinic. Yes, that's a great idea. Everybody, all guys should go in there, get their balls fondled and make sure they're clear of cancer. That's a great use of that room. Definitely better than some golden atrocity that's used for corporate events.
My joke in waiting that I told Arden the other day, but I'll just say it again when it happens. The second Trump leaves office and we decide what to do with the ballroom, somebody needs to announce that that's the last time Trump's balls will be held in our building. $10 from the atheist mechanic. F a fascist, clapping cheeks for democracy. Yeah, I'm still not to... I don't know. Maybe I'm weak. I'm not a pacifist, but I genuinely... I just despise the notion of violence until there's absolutely no other option.
Mm-hmm. $10 from Abstruse Glitch. My mom's aunt married into JW, Jehovah's Witness, and caused a massive rift in the family when she and her husband refused to celebrate her mother's birthday with her. What's the deal with not celebrating anything in Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, that's a big thing. The first part of your statement there, when certain individuals become witnesses, and now all of a sudden they aren't celebrating birthdays, they aren't celebrating Christmas anymore, they aren't going, doing trick or treat for the Halloween. That will isolate them from their family. It usually causes a rift because with many families, these are cherished family traditions. These are things the family does together to stay together. And it's a source of pride and pleasure and something to look forward to every year. But now all of a sudden you have individuals in your family who are under the influence of a cult saying, no, we can't participate in that anymore. And also, by the way, that's all pagan and bad. You shouldn't do that either. So yeah, that does cause massive rifts within families, and it's really a sad case. The second part of your question, what's the deal with JWs not celebrating anything? It depends on the thing you're talking about. There are some things that just JWs will celebrate, like wedding anniversaries are pretty common. High school graduations are pretty common. That's pretty much it. Like birthdays, Christmas, Halloween, anything patriotic, 4th of July, things like that are all off limits, and they have various reasons. Just a quick bullet point.
Were you allowed to celebrate? Were you allowed to celebrate like accomplishments, but not things that happen? Was that like the dividing line?
Just general, like non-religious or non-religious, non-pagan, non-like political accomplishments. Sure, like I had a party when I graduated high school. It was a small thing at a Marie calendar. So like they're okay with like certain celebrations like that as long as it isn't like too grandiose. But the main stuff, the holidays, it's usually because witnesses think holidays are most holidays have pagan origins. With birthdays, their reasoning is, well, the only 2 birthdays mentioned in the Bible in both God-fearing people were executed. So obviously, the Bible is showing us that this is a bad practice of bad people, so we're not going to do it. That's like the only ground they have on that. But it's a general witness mentality of we are separate from the world. We're better than the world. We're more enlightened than the world. God's with us. So we are going to separate ourselves from these worldly practices because we are just that much more special and God's chosen. So it's kind of this mix of misinterpretation from the Bible, a lot of inference, and just the general exceptionalism, self-exceptionalism they have within their group that puts him in the situation of doing this. And this isn't like harmless stuff. Like we see how Glitch's family dealt with it. I certainly dealt with like, the social fallout of that my entire life and all of school. I never went to a birthday party. I never went to a Christmas party. Whenever something like that was happening in the classroom, I had to get up and go someplace else because I wasn't allowed to do that kind of stuff. And that has a social impact on you as a young kid and then into your teenage years. So this is not like, I'm not saying woe is me or anything like that, but it was there. It was a negative social impact that I had to go through. And I probably had it fairly light, but I know other students that might be, bullied, low self-esteem. They could have far more severe consequences to this. So might seem silly, but it's not victimless.
When you
That's
went
my
to
rant.
Marie Callender's, what was your favorite pie and why was it raspberry?
Oh my God. I don't ever had a raspberry pie. I am a simple freak when it comes to pies. I just like chocolate cream. I like other pies, but if I have like a bunch of pies in front of me, I'm gonna go face plant in that chocolate cream pie because it's just amazing. In fact, I thought I just had it here. Maybe not anymore. I have my graduation photo here. We're at that party, but I can't find it right now, so it's fine. We can move on.
Pictures or it never happened. No, I love raspberry. It's basically blackberry and raspberry combined in a pie. And it was anytime we went to Marie Callender's, that was always my favorite.
That sounds amazing. But, so I'll try to get it to focus. Here's 18-year-old Eric. Trying to angle it so you don't get the reflection. That's 18-year-old Eric at Marie Callender's with my dad and my mom. So this is about 25 years ago now. Yep. Class 2000.
Yeah. Nice. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Oh, hey, speaking of medical debt, now it can reflect on your credit score now. So much winning. It can't yet, but yes, that's what they're trying. My understanding is that, was it today that they announced that? It was, is yesterday, where they're going to repeal some, or they want to repeal. And let's be honest, you're not wrong. If they want to do it, they're going to do it. What's going to stop them? That's the question. That is the number one thing that should go through their mind, but it no longer goes through their mind because they already know the answer. Nobody's going to stop them. You've got Democrats that are completely feckless and useless. Fuck you, Hakeem Jeffries, of endorsing Mondami at the last minute. The train left, just like 5 other fucking trains that you ignored. It's embarrassing. You guys are letting them get away with everything. Well, what can we do? What can we do? I'm not the one that got elected. I shouldn't have to come up with a fucking plan for you. I shouldn't have to come up with a plan for you to stop obeying your paymasters and do the thing that's right for the American people. Instead of worrying about getting yourself reelected, whoever you're going to get reelected, do the thing that's right. Do the job you were fucking hired to do. And if you don't, then we're going to keep giving it to incredibly liberal, bizarrely liberal Muslims. How is it that I'm here as a godless fucking heathen shitting all over Christianity, Islam, you name it, I'm all over it. And yet I'm great with Mamdani and a number of other left liberal Muslims. I think I don't get to decide who's a real Muslim and who's not. They don't qualify as a Muslim compared to anybody else that I've ever discussed anything with or debated. And yet I don't give a shit what religion they attest to, whether they're true Muslims, whether they're not. I don't give a shit what they are. I'm talking about their policies and what they're advocating for and what's actually better. Are any of them perfect? Fuck no. The perfect is the enemy of good. None of them are going to be perfect. I'm not a Democrat. I've never been a Democrat. Have I advocated for Democrats? You bet your ass, because when it comes down to push comes to shove, at almost every option, the Democrat has been the better option. Not good enough. I got called out and I got in a fight with somebody in my EverQuest guild the other day. Very briefly, I didn't actually get in a fight. They just threw a little fit after I called them out for something. And then they said, oh, well, I don't do well with Democrats. And I'm like, well, you should look into who else you're not doing good with, because I'm not a Democrat. They're not far enough left for me. They're not ethical enough for me. The system is broken, sure. And both sides are awful and broken, but that doesn't mean both sides are equally awful. You pick the better option. And so far, that's consistently been the Democrat. But look what the Democratic Party is doing. They're propping up people credibly, repeatedly accused of sexually inappropriate behavior, who resigned and disgraced. And yet we still have to fight these battles? Can't you find anybody new? Oh, we found somebody new. Yeah, but he's got a friend who was once associated with someone who was accused of this thing over here. Oh, cool. Why are you trying to push the guy who's credibly accused of other stuff, who doesn't have any new ideas, who doesn't know how to argue or debate his way out of a wet fucking paper bag? This isn't Sharia law. This is, there will be no religious test for any public office or trust. That's in the Constitution too. Anyway, I wasn't expecting the sidetrack, but yeah, they're trying to make your medical debt show up on your credit score as well.
I'm not surprised.
It's all right. None of us will have medical debt. We won't be going to doctors.
We got $10 from Luprek. Love you guys. How would you respond to arguments that the First Amendment significantly limits Congress from making laws, not action by other government actors like the president or public schools?
That's easy. Primacy. All state constitutions are subject to the U.S. Constitution. They only have the rights that aren't specifically reserved for the U.S. Constitution. And so when it says Congress shall make no law, since Congress must have the right to override state laws if they are in violation, and to pass laws that would shut down state laws that would then be in violation of constitutional laws, making sure that Congress doesn't have that right means that states can as well. And the Supreme Court has upheld this as precedent to say, hey, we can't allow state governments to do the thing that's prohibited by the federal government, not just not governed by the federal government, but prohibited by the federal government, because that means that we now no longer have a United States. You have different rights and freedoms wherever you go. And some basic freedoms that you are afforded in the Constitution cannot be abridged by any subsidiary government. So, $10 from Arcane Goat. Hey, they were red bottles with Tylenol written on them. Obviously, they were drugs. Oh yeah. Could you not see?
That Tylenol could have given so many people autism. They had to blow up that boat. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go drink well, no, I'm not. Never mind.
Okay, we have $10. That's not Australian, is it? Austrian? Australian? No, $10 $10. From Misha. The best dollars, yeah, A+ dollars. Misha Husnian Ali. Andrew should be in the K9 unit. He can spot drugs from great distances. Who needs drug dogs? Yeah, he can just look at some pixels and go, yeah, those are definitely drugs. Can't possibly be anything else. Those are definitely drugs.
I mean, I've seen cops do stuff like this where they'll walk up to somebody and be like, you got some cocaine in your back pocket. I think I saw you put some cocaine in your back pocket. Hang on. What did you see me put in my back pocket? Well, you know, something suspicious, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right. Yeah.
Oh,
congratulations.
Maybe those officers are using the predictive psychological anticipation proceeding seamlessly unpredictable stimuli study to foresee what went into that pocket before it even happened. I think it's all connected. We need to get John back.
Andrew and John.
Yeah.
If we can get Andrew and John together, the psychic powers of the two of those guys could fix the world. Let's do that. Let's start a fundraiser to get Andrew and John locked together in a room with each other for at least a year. Those two should be able to hash out everything. It's going to be difficult to catch them because they're psychic, so they're going to see it coming. But
you know, it would be really ironic when we did that. They feed back on each other so efficiently that we basically create a perpetual free engine motion machine, and we break physics. Like that would be so ironic and so amazing. It's like an M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end of a movie.
$10 from Arcane Goat. I think Andrew watched a few too many episodes of Miami Vice. Hey, that intro song was baller.
What was that? I remember there was a movie. Oh man, what was it? Had Robert De Niro in it, and also William Shatner. William Shatner was showing some actor about how he does it as TJ Hooker, how you gently dab your finger in the cocaine, you put it up against your tooth, and you go, oh, it's cocaine. And then Robert De Niro goes, what if it was cyanide, and just kind of stops him right in his tracks. I don't remember that movie that was, but I just you dredged up a memory, and there it is. So I don't know. Put a live chat to it. Yeah,
I think
live
I
chat. Try to figure out what movie that was and let me know, because I can't remember. Okay, we have $10 pounds. Yeah, we have 10 pounds, $10 pounds. 10 pounds from Jessica87. 3 theists in a forest. First one says, look, deer tracks. Second says, no, they are lion tracks. Third says, no, they are elephant tracks. They all then get hit by a train. Most unique show, guys. Love you soon.
Oh, Jessica McDoodoo, most unique butt face. Changed the name, but still threw a most unique in. Nicely done. $10 from Mr. Boricua 10. Andrew, you dense, dull, unthinking, dishonest, brain-warmed, tall-brained, irritating, weak-willed, uncaring, migraine-inducing, dismissive bag of nonsense. I'm dumbfounded by how you can keep on. I get that my job is to kind of try and educate, but man, I am not doing all your homework for you, Andrew. You got to go do some yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Dante,
okay. $10 from Dante Verona, 9815. Here's something alarming. There's no shortage of Americans who also think like Andrew, and sometimes they serve on a jury. Yes, that's
God,
so
man,
disheartening.
I love you and I hate you, Dante. Why you got to make me remember the shit like that?
Man.
I'm definitely going to prison. Oh, thanks, man. $20 from Insylum. According to Air Miles Calculator, the distance from Miami, Florida to Caracas, Venezuela is 1,360 miles. Due to the many islands between the U.S. and Venezuela, a boat with only a couple hundred miles could easily refuel. Well, all right, fair point. My miles were wrong. And also, I don't know how much fuel was in that boat, because I don't know who was in that boat. I don't know what their intent was, what their purpose was. I don't know whether or not they were terribly risky. But you know what happens when you refuel? You either stop or you do an underway replenishment. And that I'm actually an expert in. As the LPO of 1st Division on an aircraft carrier, I was responsible for a number of different underway replenishments where our aircraft carrier would have a supply ship pull up alongside, and you would fire across a line, pull over a line, run that across, and these two ships would be connected together in order to transport cargo back and forth across, going in at a nice speed. I know all about underway replenishments. That would be the easiest time to take out someone refueling. They're not going to be able to put up a fight. They can barely change. It is incredibly difficult to change course and to do that in anything other than the best of sea conditions. And if they have to stop somewhere to refuel, if we have satellite image that allows us to launch a drone at them, if we have satellite image that allows us to bomb them, we can fucking arrest them, just like we have every other time. But you are, if you're correct, yeah. So I guess then the question becomes, why didn't we just get them when they were refueling? Oh, because that would have required them to actually maybe have some intent to be doing the thing that we said they were doing, and that might not be the case. Anyway, it's still wrong.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to this next one, we have in the chat we had Gura, Falcon Storm, and Zeph. I'm sorry, Zeph. The movie was Showtime in 2002. That's where William Shatner is giving acting advice to actual real cops, played by Robert De Niro and somebody else. So, pretty unremarkable movie, but I remember that scene probably because William Shatner and he's Captain Kirk. So. Anyway, $5 from Stephen G. Clenard, 1766. Those American soybean farmers were smuggling drugs because they don't have fishing poles.
This is gonna. I hope this doesn't sound insulting, but that thumbnail, Steve, when it's really tiny in my browser, I have a shirt that's very similar to that, and there's a picture of me sitting in the car with the seatbelt behind me. And for a second in that tiny little thumbnail with my bad eyes, I thought somebody took a picture of me and photoshopped a swoop on it over there. And now I see, no, it's someone who genuinely looks that way and wasn't trying to mock me.
Yep.
By making me, have hair.
If you squint the eyes, yeah, it does look a little bit like you. But all right. Appreciate it, Steven.
I'll squint your eyes. Give Steve his mad respect, and the hair that he has. $10 from Never Had a Bidet. Let me tell you, before I read any further,
let's talk about bidets.
Every one of our toilets has a bidet. One of them's actually, two of them are getting ready to get replaced because they're about 5 years old now. I never had one before COVID. I will never live in a house that doesn't have one if there's anything at all I can do about it. Mm-hmm. We use very little toilet paper. My rear end feels wonderful most of the time. And ask Arden. If we're out somewhere, we'll hold it.
His rear end does feel wonderful. I can confirm.
I'm heading back to Japan here in a few months, and that's the land where there's a bidet on every toilet, even the crappiest, no pun intended, hole in the wall bathroom in a fish market by the pier. You will have a nice warmed bidet in there to greet you as you shit out your sushi or whatever. Like, yeah, it's going to be pretty nice. I do need to do some upgrades here at the house, and I think that is on my list. I think some bidets are in order.
I think Seth has a heated one. But it reminds me, when I was in the Navy, one of the most common things is anytime anybody stunk, somebody'd be like, you need to go wash your nasty ass. And if you had a bidet, you'd be washing it all the time.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
Never had a bidet because I'm so tired of this Andrew a-hole. He's completely unable and unwilling to learn anything. But he makes money. He raised money for the Psycho Student Alliance. And $1,300, people were so annoyed with Andrew that they donated. But the propaganda has destroyed his thinking muscle. He's now just a brainwashed parrot. That's like I said, I think that's why it bugs me so much, is because he always makes me just a little optimistic. It's like fucking Lucy with the football. Andrew is Lucy and I am fucking Charlie Brown. And every time I go running at that football that Andrew holds up there, he yanks it out of the way and walks off. And I'm cautiously optimistic. Anyway, thanks. Never had a bidet.
All right, we got $10 from Space Barbarian 3484. Once again, I wish the Bar Association would kick out the prosecutors of these BS cases. Yeah, I'm curious about that. These political vendetta, revenge prosecutions. Once they get to the court system, majority of them are going to fail, if not all of them. What will happen afterwards? What will we see when these prosecutors have to go before the judge, and the judge will say, we dismiss the case with or without prejudice. We can't help but notice you had nothing to bring to the table as far as evidence. Why was this case here? And then seeing the consequences of that. And the problem is, I think with that is that the prosecutors are the ones that are going to bear the consequences for that. And partially that's right, because they are pushing these cases, but it's never going to go up to the top where the real responsibility lies. And that's really the sad part about it. But it will be interesting. I think Legal Eagle is going to have content for years to come on his channel over there.
I watched Evan this morning when he was talking about the East Wing stuff. He's on my short list of. I hope I never find anything terrible about him. I genuinely think he's one of the best people.
Yeah. I get like that too whenever I'm like really cozying up to a YouTube content creator, parasocial, of course, because I don't know these people. But I'm like, man, I like this person, and I'm like, I really hope it's not like some graveyard in his closet. Oh, okay.
I'm only one step removed from him. We have a mutual friend, who knows him and has worked with him. We've never spoken, and we probably never will. But I tell you what, I would have. Don't get me wrong. Andrew Seidel will always be my favorite lawyer to get on the show with me. I have a number of other lawyers that are way up there on the list, like Gail, and Jeff, and a number that some of them have been on here and everything else. But my dream lawyer to get on the show, Devin, if you ever see this and you have any interest in coming on and ruining your reputation with a loudmouth, hot-headed, godless heathen railing about stuff, my show is yours any Wednesday you want it, pretty much. $10 from Reza Village.
I don't know him. I only know him as far as I've seen him, but if he hears that, I'm sure he'll think to himself, I can't do that for my career, but man, it warms my heart that I got invited like that, because I really want to. I want to think that.
I think that's the smartest thing he could think. Other than probably the smartest thing he could think is, who's this?
Yeah, that's you. Yeah.
$10 from Reza Village. I'd like to see people stop misusing science words to attempt to justify stuff that makes no sense. I used to be horrible about falling for that shtick. Yeah.
I mean,
you surround stuff in jargon.
Yeah. And best defense against that, especially with people like John, because it's not the first person I've interacted with on this show or on this channel, where they call and they say, I have a study says this, and therefore this, and this. It's really easy to pull up that study and just search for the keywords they're using. Like I said, I pulled up the study, I got to the whole text. I did search for psychic, I did search for metaphysical or meta-analytical or meta-analysis, analytical. I did search for quantum. I did search for memory. And the stuff that he's saying is not in there because those words are not present. So the stuff he's saying using those words has to be made up because it's not in the article. It's really easy to do. And then that's with me going into a blind, not knowing anything. I can't imagine what I would come up with if I had a few hours to myself just to kind of really dig in and like make notes and like study it. But yeah.
If it weren't for the fact that it's a 2012 study that I don't recall, maybe we talked about it, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever. I don't remember. I think we'd have heard a little bit more about it if it was, a demonstration that psychic was real, whether supernatural or not. Instead of just, hey, here's a meta study that shows a curious thing that we don't yet understand and can't necessarily explain. But I'm not a quantum paperclip. So, speaking of,
it's my turn, I think. $20 from Arcane Goat 2024. Maybe we're all just quantum paperclips. Yeah, maybe. I was joking in the chat, I think with John, Godless Engineer. It's like, what's the purpose of the universe? Is it to make poop? I think he said. And then I said, no, I think the purpose is to make paperclips once I finally create a paperclip creating AI and it gets out of my control. So I think
is
that's
John still in chat?
No, I think it was
I'm mad at myself because I'm trying to pay a lot less attention to chat. And yet today I ended up paying attention to chat way more than I have been. And yet I didn't see John. Because John's on with me next. Is it next? No, next week. Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
Sweet. John the Psychic Paperclip, do you have a moment to talk about the monad? That is my favorite funny of the day so far.
You see on a paperclip where it curves around, that inside part of the curve, that's where the monad is. You can't see it, but that's where it resides. And paperclips have multiple curves in it, so there's multiple monads in there. So you gotta remember that. $9.99 from Hannah Hodkins. John the Dusty Paperclip. Most well-known quantum physicist ever known to man, who lives in his grandma's basement and goes to frat parties. You know, that entire sentence is more plausible than psychic phenomenon in this article here. So sure, why not?
$10 from Hypeo Zoo. My apologies for trying to relay what Johnny Burke's contention was. Thought you somehow missed that, but shouldn't have bothered since you knew exactly what you were doing. Here's a 10 for the trouble. Thanks. I will move along now and forget about the time that I waste. You know, one of the things, it's my fault. Like, this is completely my fault. First of all, I shouldn't have been looking at chat or caring about chat. This is when I skipped therapy this week because I had too much work to do. It's supposed to be tomorrow, but I pushed it out because I've got to get videos finished up tomorrow. And one of my new rules was to stay mostly away from chat and to not interact. But Andrew got me to a point where I was just losing my mind. And I was like, how is chat seeing this? And so I went and took a look. And then I did the things that I'm not supposed to do. And so Johnny Burke managed to get to me. And even, I bet you won't Google this on the thing. All because he either unintentionally or intentionally misunderstood or misrepresented what I was talking about. And then I let him convince me to do that. But I'm getting better. It took me a lot longer to tell Andrew to shut the fuck up than it would have 6 months ago, I think.
And you know what? I mean, throughout all that, we both maintained really positive zen. I think it's a victory. I don't think you should be too hard on yourself there. I think it was great. That's
well, I
my
need to
opinion.
keep being hard on myself because I want to keep getting better. And I think I am
That's
getting
true.
a little bit better. But
That's true. All right.
$10 from Hannah Hodgins.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whoops, sorry. I meant John, the failed actor who didn't get his 5 seconds of fame and doesn't make the big bucks as a quantum physicist. Oh, that guy. You know, he's like Clippy, the old Microsoft failed assistant, the little paper clip down there. John pops up every now and then to say stuff, and it just annoys the shit out of everybody.
Just close. Just move them over to the other screen.
Matter of fact,
Oh my god!
Arden,
Oh my god! The X button's not working on Clippy. Oh my god!
Arden, if it's possible, the thumbnail for whatever clip that is should be a clip of a Clippy clip, quantum clip, and then put the little paper clip down there or something like that.
I love it.
Clips all the way down. All right. Oh yeah, I miss Clippy. I miss back when AI was annoying and not terrifying. $20 from WK Misty Nipples 7224. Hey Matt, just got my Olukai slippers the other day. Thanks for the recommendation. They are pretty nice. And there's your example right there, audience who did not know, including me. I did not know an Olukai slipper, what that was.
I don't think they're going to end up sponsoring the show because I get the feeling from Olukai that they're very like, they're going to hang loose and they're not going to get into contentious stuff. I will say, I'm glad you tried it out, Mr.
Right there with Devin.
Yeah.
It's like, we like the thought, but a tactical, political, no, we'll pass on that.
Yeah, I've been really happy with them. I don't go barefoot at all anymore. But I also end up wearing socks all the time because while my feet don't normally get stinky because I normally run around barefoot or in tennis shoes and socks, if I just wore the slippers all the time without socks, they'd, I don't know, smell like trash in a week. So But cool. I'm glad you're liking them. Thank you for the support. $10 in alleged money from our neighbors to the north who should make the United States a province. But when I was in Fort Knox for training, there were teens there on essentially a jail release program. They earned potential pay levels if they enlisted after they served the punishment. That's wild. That seems to almost be skirting the law as well. There's a number of things that we all kind of go, And it's like, people are doing it right now. If you watch Devin's thing on Legal Eagle about the East Wing destruction and everything else, there's a lot of questions about what was the proper legal procedure, both for demolishing it and for doing a new building and for getting the funding to do a new building.
Mm-hmm.
And how many ethical violations are how many ethical violations are there in this process? And is this just pay for play? And I'm like, yes, it is.
It would be that. Those are all great lines of inquiry because, it's Trump, a lot of shady stuff going on. You can be sure, but it would be really funny if for the rest of his presidency, the next 3 years, that project gets locked up in legal battles determining what the hell's going on. He has a reputation for not paying contractors, so maybe the work will stop because they don't expect, all kinds of stuff could lock up and turn this project into just this development hell situation for the rest of his presidency. And that would be really poetic that the White House is half destroyed for the rest of his presidency. It would be
the
funny.
Foundational principle of innocent until proven guilty is one that I stand strongly behind. But I think I'm at the point now, since he's been guilty every time and never pays for it, I think that I'm willing to make an exception, and that there's one person in the United States that is always guilty until proven innocent, and that should be Trump.
I'm very much. If it walks like a duck. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So
you got to read this one right.
Oh man, no pressure. $10 from Jen Stalicious 99. $10 from Jen Stalicious 99. How'd I do? Did I pass?
I think so. I think it's. I don't know if it's Jan or Jen. We can do the GIF Jeff. GIF Jen.
Jan Stalicious? Okay. Jan, I'm going to stick with my guns. Jan Stalicious 99. Send in another $10. Let me know if I did that right.
I'm going to go with Gant's Delicious, and if I got it right, send in 20.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm kidding, but
and is it 99 or is it 99 or is it 99? That's important too.
Oh, 99, yeah, Brooklyn 99.
Yeah.
$10 from Aliashana Silver Bowl. R.I.P. Boiling Water. You will be missed. I was reading the first sentence, going, "What the fuck is this?" R.I.P. Boiling Water. You will be missed. Nice.
Somewhere right now, Erica's turning inside out, just cringing from.
Erica doesn't watch my show. If she's not on it, I wouldn't. I'm not even sure I'd want her to.
Well, I mean, Erica might be exercising predictive psychological anticipation preceding seemingly unpredictable stimuli. Possible.
I think she's way better than a paperclip. She's genuinely one of the smartest people I know.
I want to make that my new catchphrase. That's a new Fergal Burgle, Monergal Burgle. It's predictive psychological anticipation preceding seemingly unpredictable stimuli. That's going to be the new thing. $20 from J. Damani D. My ship did 2 counter-drug deployments, chasing drug boats and logistics boats involved in smuggling. We sank one vessel whose engine failed and was a nav hazard. 0 casualties. Google USS Crommelin counter-drug 2002 to 2004.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's doing it right.
I worked boats that could have taken those guys out. And I don't just mean like aircraft carriers. I mean small boats. It's the notion that there's such a great risk of this little boat bringing drugs to America that the best option is to skip due process and just blow them the fuck up. This is
Something else-
kindergarten level thinking at best.
Something else kind of comes to mind too. I thought about it earlier, but now that we're back on the topic, I'm no expert on the mob. I've watched The Godfather, so I'm somewhat of an expert in the mob, but not entirely. How many situations do you have where a boat or a vehicle is transporting something, but the driver has no idea what's in there? They're just simply given a vessel with cargo and say, take it here. Because I think in certain cases, it's better for the mafia or the mob or the cartels or whatever to make sure that people know as little as possible within the organization. They're just doing a job. They're just doing a logistics job. They're just doing a transport job. Might be possible that those boats that blew up did need to have cocaine on them, but they had completely innocent, unaware people just trying to work a job. We don't know. Like this is the problem with this type of extrajudicial sans due process killings is we don't know. We never will know. Could have been innocent people. They could have all been innocent. We'll never know. And now we have destroyed families and potential new people hating the United States. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think the United States has generated the most terrorists ever just by bombing constantly countries and killing, ripping apart families. Like, how many people are we pissing off doing this? And how is that coming back to bite us in the future? This is just more of it, just indiscriminate killings without concern of the consequences. And it's like, it's horrible. But
yeah, the issue isn't that people who are objecting to the destruction of the killing of these people, we're not saying there are no circumstances under which they might have deserved it, although I'm pretty close to saying that would have to be a bizarre last resort. But we're saying we don't know. And we need to know in order to have confidence in our government. And the confidence has been eroded thoroughly. I don't trust shit this administration says, because every single time, right down to the poll numbers or what the economy's doing, every single time there has been a verifiable fact about reality, it's been wrong. And obviously so. And it's like we're being gaslit at an incredible pace. Every day, I'm like, oh, this can't be real. You know, I used to mock people and give them shit on Facebook for posting stuff without checking sources. And now they can check sources and they'll still post it. And I'll be like, this can't be real. And then it's real. The Department of Labor stuff that I talked about earlier, that's why I'm doing a video on it. I spent a whole hour just verifying that this was actually coming from the United States Department of Labor Facebook page, because it doesn't exist on their website. And there are other Department of Labor pages for other countries and as like parody accounts and things like that. I had to dig around and make sure that it was the right one. And yeah, you're forgiven for making mistakes and believing shit and not having the time and energy to verify everything. But holy shit, if somebody comes up to me right now and says, hey, you got this information wrong, like the distance to Venezuela or whatever, here's the actual facts. My first reaction is, holy crap, did I get that wrong? How would I go find out? Let me go look up. Did I do my due diligence? Did I just look at a meme, whatever? There are other people who don't do that. And that's the problem. Or a problem. $10 from Misha Husnain Ali. Bidet supremacy. White people need to learn how excellent and clean bidets can feel compared to just toilet paper. Never thought I'd be saying this on the line, but there you go. Facts.
Yeah, I read an article a while ago about why bidets never really picked up the United States, because in World War II, in the post-war occupation of the country, American soldiers liked them. Like they were up and coming back then, and when they came back, like it didn't really come back with them, because I think like the American soldier had like preconceptions about like they were either feminine or they had like something other things associated with it that they didn't necessarily like at the time. So like that didn't come here, even though they liked it a lot when they were in the country. I can't remember the article I read on that, but it's kind of interesting how it's kind of like a miss in history, because all of our butts could be way cleaner right now if only they had thought about it differently 80 years ago. So CA $10. Canada $10. I was going to say California dollars, but not yet. Maybe California one day will have its own money. Canada $10 from Reverend Nate 2735. This is for the voice of the goddess chiming in with that hilarious confirmation about Matt. Hilarious.
Basically, when Arden chimed in to let everybody know that, yes, my rear end does feel amazing.
I get it. Thank you for, I would not have gotten that. My brain is so empty right now.
Too, but.
Well, thank you, Nate. Appreciate that.
$10 from Misha Nana Lee. Matt, how can you possibly make fun of a super serious leading expert paperclip psychic by calling him Clippy? We should definitely not make it a running joke. I think I want a t-shirt. By the way, for anybody who doesn't believe that my rear end feels amazing, you should go back and watch the live stream that we did raising money for the Psycho Student Alliance where I twerked. You want to know what it sounded like in chat when that happened?
I believe it.
Sounded just like that.
It's the first time a YouTube live stream chat has ever made a noise, and it was that, and I believe it. Yes. $9.99 from Hannah Hodkins. We need a clip of the quantum clippy clip clipper, clipping and clopping, clippy tongue twister. I think I did okay. I got through that. First pass, too.
The real tongue twister is Hannah's name because every single host has called her Hannah Hodgkins, and there's no K.
Yeah, Hodkins.
Hodgins.
Hodgins.
It's just Hodgins. There's no
That's
K.
clearly Hodgins.
Oh my God.
Hannah, send another $10 to tell us how to say your name. Thanks, Hannah.
$20 from Brent J. Council Treasurer. This deserves 2 FMBMBs from Eric. Okay. Can you do 2 FBMBs?
Fergal, Burgle, Manergal, Burgle, Fergal, Burgle, Manergal, Burgle.
There you go.
There you go.
Fergal, Burgle, Manergal, Burgle. I don't do Fergal, Burgle, Manergal, Burgle quite as much as I used to.
Yeah, it's been a moment.
It's lost its shine. It went from meaning nothing to meaning something, and that made it less meaningful.
Wait a few years, then bring it back, and then it'll be retro and awesome again. This happens in cycles. You know, you gotta be patient.
Somebody else needs to bring it back, because if I wait long enough for it to be retro, I'm just going to look like the old guy who's out of touch. Oh wait, I'm already there.
Although, back in my day,
I've been watching K-pop Demon Hunters twice, so I'm not completely out of touch. And I think Taylor Swift's new album is meh. But I do like Sabrina's new album. So.
I need to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. I've heard really good things about it. And all of my friends tell me I should. Although I did, musical, I did just rewatch both the Spider-Man Across and Into the Spider-Verse movies again last week, which is made on the same K-pop Demon Hunter, I believe, was made with the same animation technology developed for those two movies. And I hear K-pop Demon Hunter is excellent. The Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies are amazing. They're ultimately rewatchable. It's awesome. I got to go watch that. Okay, $10 from Joshua Everett, 9887. Bidets are the bidest.
Nice.
This is so true.
That's it.
I see Josh.
And Joshua, we got in the last super chat. Let's wrap this stuff up real quick. First of all, thanks to Dragon for call screening, Arden for producing, all of our moderators, and everybody who tuned in, and the people who were brave enough to call in even when nobody else was calling in, including Andrew. Andrew, call me back sometime after you've done just a little bit of Googling on your own, so that I don't have to do all the work and heavy lifting in this. It isn't just a show where you get to call in and say, I heard this, is that true? And then I debunk it. You can go to Snopes.com for that sort of thing. There's a lot going on. Halloween's coming up in just a couple days. One of the videos that I'm doing tomorrow is kind of a weird, creepy zombie story, but relevant to religion and theism and Christianity in particular. I've got a number of other projects coming up. We're excited. We just hatched out a couple of new snake babies, but I'm not going to show them off yet because one of them's literally still in the egg. But the egg is now open. Eric, what have you got coming up or going on?
I got nothing coming up. I have some vacation travel coming up here pretty soon. And catch me here next time I'm here, probably within a week or two.
All right. Well, a much longer show than expected, especially since it took a while to get calls. I don't know if that was because maybe we got an hour late start because of time changes or time shifts somewhere. Who knows? In any case, thanks everybody for tuning in. You can go to patreon.com/calltheline to find out more and support us there. You can also like and subscribe here on YouTube. You should definitely do that and spread the word because that helps more than you can imagine, even more than your $10 and $5 and everything else. You can go to linemerch.com. Please take care of yourself and get ready.